All right, I'll call to order the Rolesville Board of Commissioners regular meeting. This is November the 7th, 2024. Just want to welcome and thank people for turning out tonight. Looks like we got a pretty good sized crowd in the room here. Also, I'm sure people are watching online, so thanks for tuning in. We have a full agenda tonight, so we're going to be moving pretty quickly on that. I would like first for us to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll ask everybody to stand for that. And then after that, we're going to have an invocation by Pastor Stephen Moy, Richland Creek Community Church. If you would, Stephen, when you get a chance, come on up and come to the mic. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we are so grateful for another day. And Father, we're grateful for the many blessings you give us. Father, I'm grateful for leaders that come together, that invest their time and effort and energy and lives into leading towns and helping people. And so, Father, we are so grateful for that. Lord, I pray that you bless this meeting tonight. Lord, that you would bless each individual in here with great wisdom and discernment as they discuss and make decisions and help the people of this town. Lord, I'm certainly also grateful for the businesses in this town. I think of Food Line that provides the majority of my food. I thank you, Father, for them. I thank you for the ways in which you bless us, Father. Lord, we love you and we thank you for your Son that came and died on a cross for our sins. Lord, we thank you for your grace and mercy. Lord, I pray that you bless this meeting. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you coming out. Okay, we're going to move on with the items tonight. First thing we have is some proclamations to do. And actually, we have two dealing with veterans that we want to start with. And Dan Austin will read those. Commissioner Austin, if you don't mind, read those proclamations, if you would.
Yes, sir. Proclamation of the Town of Rolesville. Employ a Veteran Week. Whereas for more than 200 years, our communities and state have built with the to help our veterans who served their country during peace and war to keep democracy safe. And whereas North Carolina is home to nearly 800,000 veterans, technical skills, strong work ethic, leadership, and experience with teamwork make them an invaluable segment of the workforce. And whereas in 2024, North Carolina is celebrating 50 years of partnering with what is now known as the Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program through the United States Department of Labor, which supports employment and training services provided by professionals based at NC Works career centers across the state. And whereas the state of North Carolina has developed a variety of tools to help veterans to find jobs and training, including NC Works Veteran Portal located at veterans.ncworks.gov, and whereas the state of North Carolina collaborates with North Carolina for Military Employment and other organizations to connect veterans with employers that are looking to hire, and whereas employment services are amongst the resources provided to participate in North Carolina's nationally recognized Veterans Treatment Course, which enhance public safety while promoting re-entry and rehabilitation for veterans who are involved. And whereas the state of North Carolina encourages companies to provide employment opportunities to veterans already in the workforce and those transitioning out of military service. Veterans have valuable skills and experience gained in the military that are highly transferable to new careers in high demand fields. And whereas the state of North Carolina benefits from the service of numerous veterans as state employees, and whereas North Carolina's First in Talent Plan emphasizes the importance of expanding upon programs to help veterans transition to the civilian workforce and overcome barriers so that their diverse talents and skills can contribute to a thriving, innovative economy. And whereas the state of North Carolina remains committed to making our state the most veteran and military-friendly state in the nation and the premier choice for veterans looking for a place to work and to live. Now therefore, be it resolved that the town of Rolesville do hereby proclaim November 11th through the 15th, 2024 as Employ a Veteran Week in North Carolina and commend its observance to all citizens. Adopted on this 7th day of November 2024, signed by our very own Mayor Ronnie Kern. Supporting Operation Green Light for Veterans. Whereas the residents of the town of Rolesville have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. As whereas the contribution and sacrifices of those who serve in the armed force have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and the way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas the town of Rolesville seeks to honor individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, the Veteran Foreign Wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. And whereas active military service members transitioning from military service at a high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourage all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas the town of Rolesville appreciates the sacrifice of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted, therefore be it resolved with designation as a green light for Veterans Town, the town of Rolesville hereby declares November 4th through Veterans Day, November 11th, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifices of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. Therefore, be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, the town of Rolesville encourages citizens to patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying green lights in the window of their place of business or residence from November 4th through November 11th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. It is Veterans Month, so good timing there. Appreciate it. We got one more proclamation I'm going to read. Diabetes Awareness Month, and this one is kind of personal a little bit. I know last month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and in April, she had a personal testimony for that, and I have one for diabetes too. My dad suffered it real bad. His whole retirement, he was battling the complications of diabetes. And I had a niece. I only had one niece. She was 8 years younger than I. I had one niece, and she died in her 30s from serious complications of diabetes, including heart disease, blindness. She was blind, and also kidney disease. So, this is a special one for me, and it's kind of hereditary. So, I worry about my kids, because, it's a family thing. And so I'm going to read this one, so I appreciate everybody's attention on this. Whereas an estimated of 38 million people in the United States have diabetes, a serious disease with no cure, and more than 1 million adults report having at least diagnosed with diabetes by the health care professional of North Carolina, and more than 50,000 in our state is diagnosed with diabetes annually. And whereas, while diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in North Carolina, approximately 1 in 5 people with diabetes do not know they have the disease. Whereas complications from diabetes include heart disease, stroke, blindness, kidney disease, hearing loss, and amputation. Whereas racial and ethnic minority population in North Carolina have an increased risk for developing type 2 diabetes, whereas more than 1 in 3 North Carolinians may have prediabetes, a condition that puts them at greater risk for developing type 2 diabetes, and whereas type 2 diabetes accounts for approximately 95% of the diagnosed diabetes case of adults in the United States, type 2 diabetes can be prevented or delayed through participation in diabetes prevention life cycle change program. And whereas North Carolinians can visit the diabetes-free NCweb.com website to find out if they are or at risk for the disease, those living with diabetes can visit the diabetesmanagementnc.com website to find a diabetes self-management, education, and support services near them. Whereas an increase in community awareness of risk and factors and symptoms related to diabetes can improve the likelihood that people with or risk for diabetes will get the attention they need before suffering the devastating complications. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Ronnie Kern, Mayor of Rolesville, do hereby proclaim November the 24th as Diabetes Awareness Month in the town of Rolesville and commend the observance by all citizens. So thank you very much. Like I said, that's a little bit. My niece, she was actually married, and she had 2 little kids, and she was a paralegal. She was working for a lawyer firm, and she got to noticing she couldn't read no more. She was getting more blind every day, and she completely lost her eyesight within a few years. So it's a serious thing. So I would suggest anybody that has any family relatives to stay on top of that for sure. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next item is consideration approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I think I heard Linwood first. So motion and a second. Is any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Consider approval of the consent agenda, and there's 2 items on there. Consent to adopt the minutes from the October 8th, 2024 meeting, and consent to adopt a resolution adopting Wake County multi-judicial hazard mitigation plan. What is the view of the board on that?
So moved.
All right, got a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Thank you very much. At this point in the meeting, we'll do public to be heard. We do have a lot of people tonight. We've got a continuation of a public hearing to do, and also a new public hearing. We want to kind of be strict with the time limit. So I think Christina, she's going to help me monitor the time, and we got, first one is Brooke. Glad to see you. Hadn't seen you in a long time. So come on up. For you guys don't know Brooke, she's from the Joel Fund. She is the owner and operator of that. So Mike, yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, everyone. Thank you for your time. I stand here before you this evening to ask you to consider the rezoning of the Scarborough Apartments land. They will be presenting to you to the addition of some apartments for veterans in need. Okay. And I think it's very timely since this is Veterans Week, and we're talking about how amazing Rolesville is for veterans, what a community it is.
You said Scarborough?
Yes.
So that's the.
Should I wait? Am I not supposed to talk yet?
Yeah, if it's a Scarborough, you can wait.
I was told to talk at the beginning, sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
You want me to sit down?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
don't mind, thank you. Yeah, does anybody else want to speak real quick? Okay, come on up. Introduce yourself and,
Good evening. My name's Karina Stipp. I am a local senior specialist realtor, and I understand you're making a decision of some sort about Merritt Farms this evening. So that's what I came to address.
right.
I already read a letter to all the commissioners and to you, Mr. Mayor, but I just wanted to come in person and speak to how important and how needed this community is. I have many, many clients who are on searches for homes just like this, and there's only 3 that are in the northeast quadrant of the city. And those are, 2 of them are already full, 1 is being filled, and that's in Youngsville. So there's very few to choose from for seniors, and especially not at the price point that this Merritt Farms will be offered. So when seniors are looking for something they can age in place, many of them are essentially trapped in the homes they're currently living in because there's no options for them. So when I put them on a search and they want something especially in the 300,000 range or 400,000 range, it's a unicorn. It doesn't exist, especially with all of the main living area on the first floor. So I'm really hopeful that you will approve this because it's going to be a great addition to Rolesville and to Wake County to help out the seniors and have an option for them. So they stay at home more. There's not as many people in the home because there's usually 1 or 2 people who live there. They don't drive as much because they get up a little late, they sleep in, they have a doctor's appointment, they go pick up a child or grandchild from school, and then the sidewalks roll up about dinner time. So it's a nice, quiet community to add, and I think Merritt Farms is really a lovely, well-planned community that would be a great addition to Rolesville.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Okay. All right, well, we will move on. Appreciate it a lot. Next item is the Town Board Liaison Reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Dan Austin with Veterans.
All right, bear with me. It's been a busy 7 days. November 7th, 2024, Veterans Report. November military anniversaries and observances. Marine Corps birthday on November 10th. Marine Corps celebrates his birthday, which was founded in 1775. And of course, on Veterans Day at 1100 hours at our town hall, the town of Rolesville, the Veterans Helping Veterans, and the Garden Club of America will be having a Veterans Day celebration. First, we will be outside for our ceremony, and then lunch will be provided inside the community center. All are welcome to attend. The month of November is also National Military Family Appreciation Month. All Americans recognize the contributions of military families and those who have served in the military. On 30 November, I had the pleasure of being the MC for the Joe Fund groundbreaking ceremony. Thank you to Congresswoman Deborah Ross, Wake County Board of Commissioners Chair Thomas, and Mayor Ronnie Kern.
Dan, I think he needs you to turn your mic on.
Sorry about that. For remarks, on November 1st at 1000 hours through 1300 hours, Master Sergeant Jerry Mantnam, which is Veterans Helping Veterans, hosted the first Veterans Resource Fair inside the community center. Thank you to all the vendors who attended, and the next event is going to be in the works to go to Zebulon. He wants to do this every quarter. So we're looking at probably a time frame of March, but stay tuned for that information. Operation Greenlight, you guys know about that with the proclamation. And then the North Carolina District 2 annual Veterans Briefing with Congresswoman Deborah Ross was this morning. Mayor Curran attended with me. The event was dedicated to honoring and celebrating the service of veterans residing in the 2nd Congressional District as a gesture of appreciation for the veterans' selfless service and commitment to our country. The briefing was taking place at Wake Tech Community College on the Beltline Education Center. On November 6th, at 0900 hours, I attended that briefing. Here we go. I had the honor and privilege being the keynote speaker for the United States Environmental Protection Agency Veterans Day observance. That event was this morning at 1100 hours, and they used Microsoft Teams for that, and they had a total attendance of just shy of 2,000 attendees. And the Wake County Council of Veterans Organization Incorporated will be having their annual Veterans Day ceremony on the north side of the Raleigh State Capitol building. The ceremony will begin at 1100 hours. There will not be a parade. I repeat, there will not be a parade, but there are talks of bringing back the parade for next year. If not, I told them that Rolesville would be glad to host a Veterans Day parade. And that would
Thank you.
conclude
They
my
didn't do it
report.
last year either, did they?
No, sir.
This
And,
is the second year they haven't done it.
and last year, at the event, a lot of Vietnam veterans was coming to me crying because of how they was treated when they was coming back from Vietnam and asking if we could do something about it. So if they don't host it, Rolesville would be glad to have it.
Good. Thank you, Dana. Appreciate that. Commissioner Linwood Long, Public Safety, anything to report, Lynn?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to just share some insight to the citizens of Rolesville on behalf of our public safety. First up, for the month of November and December, on behalf of the Rolesville Police Department, we want to call out a few things. There will be a holiday meal giveaway month of November and/or December. We are proud to help with meal giveaways facilitated by the Northern Community Food Security Team, which includes a representative from Roseville Parks and Rec. In order to get details on food security events, please see roseville.nc.gov/community-resources. That email is on site. Also, the month of December, we are doing Shop with a Cop. The Shop with a Cop program is designed to help foster positive interactions between students and law enforcement. There is an application. The application is online, and it needs to be filled out very soon before November 24th. Again, that is Shop with a Cop. I'd like to also celebrate a recent recent hiring of Officer O'Connor. It looks like it was on November 1st. We're continuing to grow our community, but also grow our support from the community on public safety. Obviously, PD also participated in Halloween, which is always good. One of the things I wanted to call out for the holiday season is the the Internet Exchange Safe Zone. Potential users of websites such as Craigslist and other online services can use the side parking lot of the Rolesville Police Department 204 South Circle as a safe place to exchange internet purchases. That is very key during this time of year, and wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to share that. In regards to our fire department, we are moving forward with the unification. Recently, town manager Marsh, as well as our human resources executive, Lisa Austin, all met with our RFD, which would be our fire department, to discuss through not only HR, but also most of the things that will be occurring with the unification, even down to their hours as well as potential pay. These are some updates for the day, and I hope you have a great week.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Commissioner Michael Paul, Senior Citizens, anything to report?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Our Senior Advisory Committee is almost full, and we're starting to work on some projects. Our first task is to finalize our survey, which should be sent out this month. Next, we continue to have events for our senior community. Many of these events are listed on the senior community page on the town website. One big upcoming event is the Candy Cane Stroll, to be held at Triangle Town Center on December 7th. Also, our own town Parks and Rec department is hosting a senior trip to Danville Casino on December 19th. Next, the town issued a request for proposals for the parcel land behind Town Hall. The town received 7 proposals. Of the 7, 2 are senior affordable rental proposals, and 1 is an affordable senior community where the residents have ownership in the property and their payments are fixed for the life of the resident. My Senior Advisory Committee is looking into down payment assistance programs for that proposal, should it be selected. And neighboring towns are watching this because they would like to replicate this senior affordable housing model. Finally, on the agenda tonight is the rezoning application and request for annexation for the Merritt Farm, a 150-acre parcel proposing an age-restricted 55 and over community comprised of 118 townhomes, 80 duplexes, which is 160 housing units, and 227 single-family homes, some on 40-foot wide lots, some on 50-foot wide lots, and others on 60-foot lots. This provides a variety of options for the senior community. This property is full of granite. This is the 5th contract, is my understanding, on this property, and the first one where the developer has figured out how to successfully build on it. The developer will also construct the initial phase of Fowler Road, which eventually will connect further south to the 401 bypass, bringing relief to the traffic on Rolesville Road. And being an age-restricted community, there will be less traffic from this development than there would be from a non-age-restricted community. For these reasons, I support this project. I have no financial interest in this project. I simply believe this development would be beneficial for our town. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem April Sneed, planning
All
board.
right. So we did not have a meeting for October, but we do have planned for November 19th, a joint work session with the planning board, the town board, and planning staff. And we'll discuss walkability, density, and dimensional standards at that meeting. So I'm looking forward to that, just so to make sure that everybody's on the same page and moving forward.
Thank you, appreciate that. And then Commissioner Paul Vilga, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, anything to report?
Yeah, we had a meeting. We reviewed the farm entrance that's getting closer and closer to being done out on 401. Review of the tree board questions. We were trying to come up with some better questions of why somebody would want to be on the tree board, other than just the generic questions we always ask everybody. So they worked on that, got those approved. The Merritt Property Park was reviewed. And there is an upcoming Sanford Creek Sewer project in fall of 2025. And that's all I have.
Thank you, appreciate that. Good job. Good job, all commissioners. A lot of stuff going on. I appreciate all your hard work. I guess there's one thing I want to report. Tuesday, Wake County Library bond passed. I don't know how to describe, a lot of people haven't been here as long as some of us have, but I do know, former Mayor Frank Eagles worked on that his whole term of 12 years in trying to get the library here. I see some of you nodding. I just wish he was here to see this, because, I think approving that bond Tuesday really something he had a lot of heart in, and he would have been very excited for sure. Because really, the last school bond was done in 2007. And Frank was elected mayor in 2007. So they haven't done a bond since then. So it's been, 17 years since they've done a bond. And we worked very hard. I think the staff worked very hard in trying to identify a site and make it as easy as possible for Wake County to put us as #1 priority, and it worked out. So very happy about that, and very glad that it was approved Tuesday, because a lot of bonds didn't get approved. I don't know if you looked at it or not, but it wasn't many bonds approved in Wake County, and that was the one that was, and very happy about that. So that's my report on the library bond. Communications from the town staff. Human Resource, Lisa Austin, you have a update for us?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I don't know if you all recall, but the subject of my last couple of updates has been construction. We're under construction. And I know that is a very touchy subject right now, but it's a sign of the times. Construction, as you ride down Main Street, and also construction within the organization. As I said, it's a sign of the times, and the growing pains associated with that construction, they're also a sign of the times, so we can't escape those. But we can get through those growing pains as one Rolesville. And when I say one Rolesville, I mean town staff, and I also mean the citizens of Rolesville. So with that said, I want to hone in a little bit on some of the internal construction. I've often said that your initiatives, your priorities are the bricks of the foundation, but the employees are the mortar that hold those bricks together. And our newest employees are Medet Basilius. He is our capital projects manager. We have Nitty Vyas, and I think she is here. Is Nitty here tonight? She's our new accountant in the finance department. Lily Richardson, she is my new human resources analyst. Shannon, and I know I'm going to butcher her last name, but I will apologize to her tomorrow. Garacino, she is the administrative support specialist in the finance department. And we also have Officer Daniel O'Connor, our newest police officer. As I said, the employees are the mortar. And you might ask what that has to do with the impact that we have as employees and as the conduits for seeing out your initiatives. I'm gonna get into that. But I want to take you back. I don't know if you all remember, we had a DISC assessment last year where all of the employees of Town Hall were assessed. And what the DISC assessment is, it assesses behavioral characteristics. Some people say it's a personality assessment, but it is not. It's a behavioral assessment. And they have 4 categories, and those categories are D, for dominant or driven, I, for influencing and inspiring, S, for steady and stable, C, for compliant and correct. As I said, we included all of the employees of Town Hall, and at the time, that included planning, finance, administration, parks and recreation, and human resources, and we also included the chief of police and the captain. It was a very, very interesting undertaking. We learned a lot about each other, how we interact with each other, and how we can best move forward as one team, as Team Rolesville. We focused on 7 main areas, and those areas were how well we collaborate, create, how detailed we are, how good we are at directing, how good we are at influencing, persisting, and processing. 5 out of those categories, we were average. Still a little bit of work to do, but we'll take average for now. One of them we are very, very good at, and that is processing. We are very effective in how we carry out our processes, how we get things done. The one that I want to focus on is influencing. We didn't fare too well in influencing. Influencing basically means inspiring, how well we inspire each other, how well we inspire staff, how well we inspire the community. So that's something that I want to talk a little bit about. Now again, what does that mean to the organization? If we want to be the employer of choice, which is what we have been saying ever since I've been here, then we have to make sure the employees not only come, but they stay. And I've often said, you train people well enough that they can leave, but you treat them well enough that they don't want to leave. How do we do that? As I said, we need to focus on how well we inspire. But what are we going to inspire? We have to start by inspiring a shared vision. But we have to determine what that vision is, and how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is take a look at organizational culture. And Eric has been phenomenal in his efforts to assess and to enhance our organizational culture. And as far as a healthy organizational culture, we need to look at 4 different categories. We need to look at how well we compensate employees. We need to look at how we engage our employees, how well we empower our employees, and how well we recognize our employees for the wonderful jobs that they do every day. As far as compensation, Eric signed a contract earlier this week for the next group to conduct our pay study. they're gonna evaluate not only our salaries, but also our benefits package. And we're very, very excited about that. We selected a company called AutoSolve. They're out of Florida. And the thing that jumped out about AutoSolve, they do an anonymous survey of all employees to determine what the organizational culture is. So as soon as I saw that on that proposal, yes, that's the one. That's the one, because that's everything that we're working on right now. They're also, as I said, they're going to look at our benefits, our leave accrual, just the entire benefit package. We also need to look at how we engage our employees, because that plays a major role in the organizational culture as well. We want to make sure every employee is included. We want to make sure every employee feels heard. We want to make sure that every employee feels safe enough to bring their whole selves to work. We also need to make sure we empower employees. We're working to allow and encourage employees to take ownership of their own positions. Make those decisions that they can make. Everything does not have to go to a supervisor, but we want to make sure we encourage them and allow them to do that, because that's going to play into our succession planning. That's going to play into how well we grow our leaders. And as I said, we need to recognize our employees for the excellent things that they do on a daily basis. We currently have an employee recognition program called Rolesville's Most Wanted. And I hate I didn't bring a picture of Eric in his sheriff's hat and badge. We recognize employees for getting caught doing those excellent things, going above and beyond. But we're going to kick Rolesville's Most Wanted up a notch. We're going to make it more substantive. In the past, we've looked at folks who have completed training or who went above and beyond to provide excellent customer service. And those things are still important, and we're still going to encourage those things. But we are going to make a conscious effort to connect those things to your strategic plan. Because in order for us to move forward as a high-functioning organization, we have to stay focused on that strategic plan. And again, what's going to get us there? The employees. So we have to recognize them effectively. I talked about organizational culture, but in order to have an effective organizational culture, we have to align our employees and our goals in order to grow and sustain positive results. Organizational culture feeds into team dynamics. It feeds into strategic planning. It feeds into leadership development. But we all have to start by cultivating that awareness of what our culture really, really is. Once we cultivate that awareness, then we have to do everything that we can do to facilitate change where change is necessary. Sometimes change is a dirty word, but in order to grow, we have to change. We can't be afraid of change. And as an organization, we are embracing change. Once we do that, then we can focus on growing results, growing positive, sustainable results. One thing that we need to look at when we consider our organizational culture would be both internal and external partnerships. We can partner internally by different departments coming together to work on projects or complete tasks. But externally, there are many, many organizations, individuals that we can partner with. And I don't know if you remember, but in my last update, I told you about a partnership that we entered into with Rolesville High School. They have an internship program where juniors and seniors can enroll in, and they have to go out into the community and find jobs. They have to work 120 hours in their actual work hours. They actually work, they go through the interview process, all that. And I am very, very happy to say that our first intern started yesterday, and she hit the ground running. Great. We're expecting another one, hopefully within the next week or two. But I think that's going to be a win-win situation for us because we're going to get much-needed help. And it's going to be a win for them as well because they're going to get that much-needed work experience that they can put on their resumes. They can build relationships where we can provide references for them when they go to college or if they find a job. But yes, that's something that I'm very, very proud of. Other news. We received the results of our workers' compensation audit just this morning. And when I saw it, I wanted to scream. Because we had such low workers' comp claims, we're actually getting a refund this year on our premiums, $7,067.10. That's not something that usually happens. But I think we can give kudos to our staff who are cognizant of not only what they do, but how they do it, and they operate in a very safe manner. As you know, we have been recruiting for an assistant town manager, and that process has not been moving very quickly, but we received 144 applications, and we're going to start the interview process next week. We're going to start with virtual interviews, and we will pull candidates from those interviews to move to the next level of the selection process. As I said, a lot of times when we think of construction, it has a negative connotation, but it doesn't have to. Not only are we going to rise, Rolesville inspiring stellar employees, but we're also going to try to inspire each other and the community. So if you have any questions at all, I am happy to answer those questions at this time.
Yes, ma'am. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank
And
you.
you are right, because that's exactly what a leader does, not judged or measured by what he or she does, but what they inspire others to do. When is the study for the AutoSoft is going to happen?
Well, we had our kickoff call yesterday. That was very, very productive. We hope to have it completed by January 31st, so we can have some numbers to plug into the budget. But we are on the fast track. Some of the legwork we started before we selected a group to conduct the study because we knew we were on a tight timeline.
And what department did the intern end up going to?
The first one will be shared in this building. Finance, HR, administration, also, in fact, she is with Candace right now. Candace met with her yesterday, and she said that she wanted a fresh perspective because she said that sometimes, you know, she gets focused on one particular thing, but she wants those fresh eyes. She wants that fresh insight. So they have been talking the majority of today, and I think they're going to have some really, really good results when it comes to communications and community engagement.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is it going to be a total of 2 interns?
Yes, the second intern is going to be in Parks and Recreation.
Okay. And how many are you interviewing out of that 144, I think you said, for assistant town manager?
We whittled it down to 10. That was a very, very daunting task, but we whittled it down to 10.
All right. And my final thing is that I appreciate that you're promoting encouragement, accountability, and responsibility in the employees by having them make decisions for themselves, because I think that promotes growth and professional development. So good for you.
It does. It does. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for Lisa?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lisa, doing a great job. Appreciate all the
One thing I wanted to add to the presentation is that with the hiring of Officer O'Connor, our police department is fully staffed. And so that particular metric is something to celebrate, because a lot of law enforcement agencies and service agencies are struggling to retain their police officers and don't find themselves with enough experienced staff and have vacancy rates of upwards of 25 to 30%. And so I just wanted, from the human resources perspective, just salute Chief and captain and their lieutenants for creating a culture that makes our law enforcement officers want to stay, because we are not the highest compensating department within the area, but I do believe that we're one of the best places to work and offer up some of the intangibles that make people want to stick and come and work. And so I just wanted to celebrate them. I had the opportunity of sitting in one of their leadership meetings today and thank them all for doing that, their supervisors, and I thank them for helping create that culture that helps us retain officers that keep our streets safe. And so I wanted to just thank Chief while he was here and then shout him out as just kind of like to add on to Lisa's presentation about human resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa. Good presentation. Appreciate that. Financial, Amy Stevens, Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Been a long time since I've been up here. It's good to see you all. No news is good news when it comes to finance.
So what do you think about the bond being approved for the, are we going to be able to help with that?
It's good news for the library. I know it's a long time coming in this community and something folks have been working on for a long time. So I'm going to be up here twice tonight, so I'm actually splitting my update into two parts. This first half, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the department itself, and then I'll get into some of the financial numbers when I come back a little later before we have the financial statements presentation.
Very good.
So sometimes when I think about what we do in finance and how we spend a lot of our time, I end up thinking about production lines. You know, sort of like you see here, it looks like an auto assembly plant, because so much of what we do is very repetitive. Taking in money, paying invoices, processing payroll, sending monthly or quarterly reports to the state or the federal government. It's very routine. That's not to say it's simple, because some of those processes are really quite complex, much like building a vehicle. But when you have a big industrial machinery like that, it's important every now and then to halt production and to make sure you do some preventive maintenance and you do process improvement, right? You need to oil the machine. You may need to get some dust out of the corner. Maybe the widgets on line number 5 are a little crooked and you need to go in and do some adjustments. Sometimes components of that machinery can become obsolete and you have to take them offline and put in some new technology. And so that's what we're doing when I talk about this list here. So while most of our activities are that repetitive routine, keeping the gears moving of town hall and the departments in the town, we do some process improvement, organizational development, those types of things. So this is some of the things we've worked on since the last time I've seen you. The ones with the check marks are ones that we have completed, and the ones at the bottom are ones that are currently ongoing. I'm not going to read all of them out to you, but just highlight a couple. If you notice from Ms. Alston's presentation, we have several new employees in finance. So spending some time on that first one of talking about creating some department metrics, talking about our organizational core values and our departmental core values has really played a big role in helping to bring that group, that team together. We've set some metrics for how we expect what we expect from each other and what the organization should expect from us. Things like once an invoice is submitted, it should be paid within 3 business days. Once we have notice of a revenue coming in, it should be posted within 1 business day. Employees should be paid the amount they're due on the day they expect it. So things like that, we wanted to start putting some things into place that we can ultimately quantify and hold ourselves accountable to those. On the ones that we're working on, vendor payments by electronic fund transfer. I've been here quite a while. We have been doing paper checks weekly for a very long time. We have finally gotten some arrangements worked out with our bank that we've reached the volume of activity where it makes sense and it's cost effective for everyone to move to electronic funds transfer. So fortunately, with the help of some of these new employees, we're working towards implementing that vendor payments by EFT, something that will make our job easier, as well as hopefully something our vendors will appreciate as well. Another big project that we're working on, actually initiated with our police department, who wanted to seek out some scheduling software. And after conversations with them, we realized that was something that several departments could benefit from. And we'd love to turn that into something where schedules become time clocks and people can clock in, clock out, submit time, approve time, all on one of these devices, because we're all attached to them now. And so we've selected a software that's very app-based, app-friendly. And so we're working on that over the next few months with all of the town departments to implement that, because they'll be involved in making sure that those schedules and monitoring those schedules and setting the schedules, so that they'll need to learn how to manage that part of the software. So we're looking forward to a lot of that. And then finally, I wanted to just share with you our current team in finance and just give them a huge shout out. It is a group of people with a very diverse set of skills, a very diverse set of personalities. But the one thing they all have in common is a desire to collaborate with each other internally. Cross-training is huge for us because that machinery has to keep running even if somebody is out. So cross-training is really important, but they also love collaborating with the people out in the town departments and our citizens as well. So huge shout out to them. They're a wonderful team, and I'm so excited to be working with this group.
Awesome. Are you at full staff now?
Yes, we are fully staffed.
Very good.
Good job.
Thank you, Amy.
Any other questions, ma'am?
And I'll be back later with the numbers.
Good. Any comments? Eric?
Yeah, I have a comment. I see that you're using a lot of technology. It's helping heal a lot of wounds.
Yeah.
First of all, kudos on that, because being innovative is very important. Do you have any other gaps besides what's up here? We'll talk about it later, but I'm sure there are other gaps that you have that you want to see technology fit in, and I'd like to hear more about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good. Thank you. Okay. Next item is some old business. We got one item for old business to take care of first. It's actually a continuation of a legislative hearing, REZ 2401 and ANX Annexation 2402, entitled the Mert Track. Just to bring everybody up to speed on where we're at, in case if some people had been here before. This is a continuation of continuation. Last meeting 2 weeks ago, we had closed the public comments and turned it over to board for them to make a decision, if y'all remember, and y'all had some questions. So I think tonight, Meredith, I see you shaking your head. I think you got the answers to those questions. So once we kind of hear those answers and all your questions, you may have some more, but we know we'll see. I understand there's some people here representing the track. I see a nod there. So, if they need to answer some of the questions or provide some clarity, because I think that's what the board was looking for, some clarity on the project. So thank you.
Great.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Curran and Town Board of Commissioners. For your consideration for the third time, you said continuation of continuation. It's REZ 2401 and ANX 2402, Merritt Property, and I've heard it called Merritt Farms this evening, so either one works. So just to get everyone back on the same page, this is approximately 150 acres located at 6200 Emily Lane, a portion of 1224 Rolesville Road, and a portion of unaddressed property on Lewisburg Road. And the request is to change the zoning from residential low to residential high and general commercial as conditional zoning districts. So at our last meeting on October 22nd, there were several topics that came up and items that were questions and things that required follow-up. And the first item was the concept site plan. You all noted that side paths should be shown on the concept site plan. And also you would like to see the maximum number of single-family attached and detached units on that concept site plan. So the applicant did provide an updated concept site plan, and it is on this slide. The side path is shown on the north side of Fowler Road, and the units are noted as 227 detached units and 278 attached or townhomes. The next item you all asked about had to do with the parkland, and you asked for clarity on the size of the park, and I believe it's a little over 5 acres, and you also asked if the parkland would be donated to the town. And the applicant has submitted a presentation and a question and answer that I do have on my computer, and if it works for you, I can pull their presentation up once I go through just the few slides we have here. The next item that came up was land use, and you all asked for a response to the potential impacts of the commercial growth feasibility study. I know that study was done a few years ago, and that is something that we plan to look at as we update our comprehensive plan, which is going on now. The next item you all asked about had to do with 55-plus communities. You were interested in a response to our 2-story townhomes desirable for that age group. I know the applicant has included some pictures and floor plans in their presentation. I know that they'll be happy to share that with you. And you also asked for examples of nearby 55-plus communities. The applicant has also included that information in the presentation that I can pull up after we complete this. The next item you all asked about was housing affordability. You asked for a comment on if there was any commitment to affordability and the provision of affordable homes. And the applicant has added a new condition, and I'll run through the conditions in just a moment. So there is a new condition about donating 2 townhomes to Homes for Heroes for Veterans or a similar organization. The other item with affordability that you all asked about had to do with ballpark square footage and price points, and the applicant has included that in their presentation. With traffic, there were questions about, do people who are 55 really drive less than other people? And we do have Matt Peach here from Stantec, our traffic engineer, and talked with Matt earlier about that, and he shared with me that its level of care dictates the trip generation more so than age. One 55-year-old might be homebound, and another one might be working 16 hours a day and driving all over the place. The next item on the list is Lake Serenity. We've talked about that at the last 2 meetings. And there were some questions about the likelihood of the preservation of trees in response to, how will safety be dealt with there, and the applicant has included an answer to that in their presentation. Next, sewer line. You asked for a timeline on the design and clarity on the location and pending effects of construction, and the applicant has included some information about that. And then finally, stormwater runoff. You all wanted to make sure that our existing and future residents are protected, and you asked for an engineer's explanation on how new construction will not worsen existing conditions. And the applicant has included some information in their presentation on that as well. Just to go through our conditions, the conditions that we've seen before, the concept site plan is incorporated as a condition. There is a 6-unit limit for townhome structures. Amenities must be completed by the 400th building permit. This is an age-restricted community for those 55 and over. The maximum number of lots is 505, and that ends up being a density of about 3.5 units per acre. And for the general commercial portions, there's certain uses would be prohibited: tattoo shops, vape and tobacco stores, and vehicle rental and sales. So the new conditions, 6 new conditions were added. Number 7 is install a type 3 buffer in the southwestern corner. As staff and planning director, I don't recommend keeping that one because that's a requirement that is already in place with the land development ordinance. That is the type of buffer that would be required between the residential high zoning and the residential low zoning. So that's stating something that would already be required by our ordinance. So I don't believe that one's necessary. For condition 8, I mentioned this one before, 2 townhomes will be donated for Homes for Heroes or a similar organization. So that was in response to your concerns about affordability. Conditions 9 and 10 have to do with commitments for architectural features for both the townhomes and the single-family detached homes. And condition 11 is a commitment to include on-lot grading in the construction infrastructure drawings. And that is not a requirement right now, so by including that on-lot grading, that's the fine grading to ensure that the stormwater drainage is going to work as well as possible. And finally, condition 12, the applicant is proposing to design and construct a greenway along the southern boundary of the property, and they do have an image in their presentation with that. So any questions for staff before I pull up the applicant presentation?
Residential low, what is the units you can build on that?
Residential low,
Yeah.
that is, land use wise, that's 0 to 2 units per acre, and I believe that's the same for the zoning district.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, the buffer is standard when you're assessing those two environments between general,
Yeah.
low and high. So they have to
Yes.
have it in there.
Right.
So there's no need for it to be called out, is what I'm understanding.
Yes, the buffer required between residential low and residential high is a type 3 buffer. That's a 25-foot width with a wall and plantings.
Any other questions? Just, I guess, clarity for the people listening, because this change from residential low to residential high does sound like it's more than, really, everything is residential low until you make the change, right? Because it's all based on county and stuff like that.
Yes, I think our zoning districts, I think the name residential high can sound scarier than it is. The reason the applicant is requesting residential high is because that is our only base residential zoning district that allows townhomes. So if you want that housing product, you have to ask for residential high. But
Yeah.
the density is more in line with medium.
Yeah, and the second thing, I guess, we don't use the current zone in the planning. So from the comprehensive plan, that's not what's in the comprehensive plan.
The comprehensive plan or future land use has part of the property as mixed-use neighborhood and part of it as business park. It's
And the density is much
two-thirds
higher.
mixed-use neighborhood and 1/3 business park is what our current land use plan shows.
Right. Just want to clarify that with people listening, because it sounds like we're doing something that we're not planning to do out there, and that's not the case, is it?
I would say I'd leave it up to you all to make this decision for the rezoning. Yes, the land use is different than the zoning district, you're correct.
Thank you, Meredith. Any other questions for Meredith before we move on? Thank you.
Sure.
So is someone going to do the presentation from here out, Meredith, or? Okay.
Would you like me to put this in full screen view?
I don't know how
Are you
much
okay?
I'll go through all
Okay.
that as
Okay.
much as I'll go through the
Okay.
answering the questions. 'Cause
Sure.
it's all, you know,
Okay.
it-
And I also have
try to be
your-
efficient in what I'm doing here, so.
I also have your Q&A document if you'd like that up.
I would like that up, because
Okay.
I'm going to go over that. I think that's the main thing I would like to try to hit on, and then I can show some other
Here is
things. So
that for
that's
you.
great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I know it was in the packet. Good evening. I'm Tom Johnson. I'm an attorney with Williams Mullen at 301 Fayetteville Street, Suite 1700 in Raleigh. Here on behalf of the applicant to walk through some of these additional questions. The applicant wanted me to do it. I've been doing land use for almost 40 years, and I've been a town council member. I was a city council member in Greenville, North Carolina before I started doing this type of work. So I came in to help with that. But on top of that, that I think helps with some of the understanding as I go through this, is I actually live in one of the 55 and over communities, active adult communities. It's not senior. Commissioner Paul said it right. It's an active adult 55 and over community. The one I live in is one of the Del Webb communities. It's Carolina Arbors in Durham. That's not on the list, but it's a pretty large one in Durham. There's a good variety of folks there. And the reason my wife and I are there is because of the single story that we had everything on the main floor for the principal use. But we do have a second floor too, because of family and friends coming to visit, and there's a place for them to be when they come. And I know that was one of the big things that was focused on at the prior meeting. So I do want to go through the questions and answers. I know they were in your packet. But I did kind of want to go through those and get those answered, and then any other questions you may have. I think that makes it easier for what we're doing. First of all, again, I just answered the one about the two-story living. Even though there's a second floor on many of these, it's for family and friends. A single floor, the ground floor is for story living for the principal owner of the dwelling, whether it be a townhome or it be a detached or attached single-family home. That's the way this is designed, and the 55 and over communities are designed. There are a lot of them in the area. I will tell you there's a huge demand. I can speak from experience in my neighborhood, and I can say because a house down the street just sold in my neighborhood off market. It didn't even go to market. So there's such a demand right now that it's hard to find one. Had a relative who wanted to come live in our community. They had to look really hard, long and hard. They finally found something. It wasn't exactly what they wanted, but they found something. They're moving, from out of town to our community. So there is a demand, and that's why you're seeing this happen. That's why you're seeing it happen in Rolesville. It's a tremendous opportunity. There is a broad range of folks that are there. There's some like me that still work. The vast majority don't. They're retired, or they may work and they may do things from home. But a lot of the folks who come, and you'll see, is a lot of folks will come from out of town because we're such a growing area. Young folks are here working, and so they come to be with their family. And they will move from other parts of the country to come here and be with their family in the 55 and over communities. And I know that's the situation in ours. Trip generation, that was touched on. Matt can verify it. The manual that deals with it is the ITE, the International Traffic Engineers Manual that deals with traffic. For a 55 and over community, it's roughly half of what a regular community would be. That's in that manual that traffic engineers use, and I think I'm about right in that, Matt, in stating that. It's about right in terms of that, but it's very close to being about half. Sewer line was a question. The design will be done in about 4 to 6 months, but I spoke to Dave the other day, Dave Neal. He has a copy of the letter where we verified we've got the easements, so that's not an issue. And if the sewer line may vary a little bit, it'll still be within property that is already contracted under easement to be able to accommodate the sewer line. So that is not a problem. Stormwater runoff, the one question I saw asked was, it won't worsen existing conditions. It can't. By law, we have to control the stormwater, so it will not change the current conditions for the worse. It can for the better, but not the worse. And I will say that maintenance of their pond to reduce that impact. And that's a private agreement between us, but that's been done to address that concern because we knew they were concerned. Preservation of trees, it may be a required buffer for the type 3, which was pointed out, but we wanted to point it out because we have to do it. So that buffer is going to be there between this project and the adjoining community. And we're also putting fencing. So there was a concern about that as well, and that's being put in place. So those are the main questions I had, but I was looking back at the memo and wanted to address that. The parkland, we're already in discussions about that with the town. The intent is to donate this over 5 acre tract to the town, dedicated to the town, but we have to work out the details, which would happen post-zoning as we go through site plan and work out those details. And so that's what we're working really hard on in doing that, and that part of that discussion has to do with the amenities that will exist in the park. And as a developer, what amenities we'll provide in that part that we would dedicate to the town. And then that deals with, maybe certain credits that we would get back as a result of some expenditures on some additional improvements. And we're walking through that right now and working through that. Affordability, as it was mentioned, 2 units are going to be for some veterans program that allows that. And I will say veterans do tend to be in these 55 and over communities just based upon the general population. I know in our community, there's a very active veterans club, and what they do is they go and help folks with little odds and ends things around their house, maintenance items, and don't charge for it, but in exchange get a donation from the resident, and then they use that money to do things in the community. So that is it's a great thing. if your door's not hanging right or need a window replaced or something like that, they will come and do that. And that's a very important part in how veterans are really involved in the community. Looking back again, our conditions, we made modifications, I think, a lot. Meredith touched on those, and I think she did a very good job touching on those. We did add some architectural things, which we would not have to do otherwise, but we did that to try to help with making the community more attractive, and it's not things unlike the developer would do anyway. I don't have anything further on the conditions that weren't already touched on. I'll tell you the very nice part about this is it's truly some mixed use because there's some commercial involved. And I'll tell you one of the big discussions we had in our community was at one point wanting a coffee shop or something like that in the community where folks could gather. And in my community, we couldn't do that because we didn't have any commercial land in it. So I like the idea in this community that that's included, because that could be very well an additional amenity, additional gathering spot for the folks that live there. So beyond that, I'm glad to answer any questions. I have, the experts who are here, if some expert question comes up that they need to address. But I did want to hit those highlights and didn't want to belabor the points that you'd already touched on and wanted to try to narrow it down to the questions. So if you have any other questions, I'll more than happy, or clarification on some of the things I mentioned, I would be more than happy to answer that.
Well, would any questions?
Yeah, I'd like for you, I like the visual for the sewer line. I think that would help.
Okay, I can run through that. I mean to get Meredith's help in getting that up there. I'll show you the visual.
It's in the packet, but I think it'll help the community.
Sure, absolutely. And I didn't want to gloss over that, believe me, I'm happy to do that. But did want to go through all these slides because it's several pages long, and I wanted to make it more concise.
I think it was towards the end.
I think it was too. There it is.
There it
That's
is.
it.
Yeah. So here's the sewer line, obviously goes along the low part of the property. This has all been taken care of. There are multiple easements, but all of those easements have been secured, which can be a challenge. I know, the developments I work with, it's a real challenge to get those, and we're fortunate in this situation that that's been taken care of.
Thank you.
I guess my question would be, I have a few, but the biggest one would be with the parkland.
Yes.
There was a layout that was shown that had multiple courts and everything else, and a gazebo or something else.
Right.
And I see that it's been downgraded now to no gazebo, 1 or 2 courts, and then now there's talk of getting credits back for donating that to the town. So I'm just concerned, we seem like we're going backwards on that, so.
No, I've not been involved in the design discussions, and that's why I say it's still open. I don't think it's been finally determined about any of that. The credits only involve, we have to make a contribution toward parkland as part of the development. Okay, that's a requirement under your ordinance. The credits would just come back if we did something over and above the minimum requirement and would get credit for doing it in kind rather than cash.
Okay.
So that's all that means.
Okay.
So it's no additional money. It's an exchange of, we don't pay the, we get some credit back for the improvements we do, which makes sense, because if you're making the improvements, why would you then need to pay the impact fee? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I understand that. We've had previous ones that come along and they just donate the land, that's it, which, with
Right.
no improvements, I understand that, but I don't know, I'm just kind of torn with that one, because I'm like, maybe we want to do the improvements ourselves. I just don't want to lose Parks and Recreation impact fees just because we're improving it a certain way that certain person wants it compared to otherwise.
And we realize that, and that's why I say that's one of those items that you get into the details at the site plan and figure that out. Mm-hmm. What we're saying is we're here to donate it, we're here to work with the town. If we can create and develop some amenities that the town wants and that is consistent with the town's vision for the park, then we can do that. I mean, one of the things, it's mentioned here, pickleball. Pickleball is huge, and I think that's some of the focus of pickleball courts. Our community, we have bocce ball courts, we have tennis courts, we have pickleball, we have a dog park. you can kind of pick and choose from those amenities so far as what fits with the community and what you'd like to see. And I think we'd like to work through that during the site plan and work that out.
Okay.
And the improvements we do would be ones that the town would be enthusiastic about if we do it over and above and get the credits back. But you're right, otherwise we can give the money to the town and the town can do it. But sometimes it's easier, more cost-effective if the developer does it at the time of development.
The other I still have an issue with the traffic. I mean, I understand that the traffic study says this and that and everything else, but where the location this thing is at, I don't see anybody turning right off out into that, from that thing. I did ask the question about 55 plus versus 65 plus. I'd asked them about that as well. I didn't really feel like there's a clear answer to that. I don't see 55 plus as senior living. So that, and I know that you were saying that's not the way it's supposed to be called. So if that's clarified by that, that's fine. But if you're 55 plus, you're still driving the same as I am. So,
But it's a wide variety.
yeah.
Okay, I would look in where I live and on my street. Most folks in the area and the section, and it's a 1,300 home development, so I'm only in part of that. But the vast majority of them are retired. There are just a few of us that work. There is a large age span.
Okay.
I mean, 70s, 80s, 90s. We just had a couple where the gentleman turned 90, where they had to end up leaving because of him getting so old and his condition. They had to move closer to family. And we had some other folks that I know, 70s, 80s, that live in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Even though it says 55 and over, and there will be some that are younger.
Right.
There's a group of us that are younger. But it varies so much. That was the comment I think that Meredith made. It does vary a whole lot.
Okay.
You don't see a lot of that traffic. I will tell you, a lot of folks just going around the community to the amenities. There'll be golf carts where they're going around to the amenities in the golf cart and not driving on the road. You see a lot of walking. You see a lot of biking. That's predominantly what you see. And the greenway is a great thing and a great part. We've got a greenway in our development. That's what you're going to see.
Okay.
That's what you're going to experience. And the traffic we get is not our traffic, but we happen to have a through street that goes through the neighborhood. That's more of the issue with other folks coming through the neighborhood than it is with our folks.
The other question I had was with pricing. We had asked about this initially, I think, in a meeting before that. I read through here, and I think the townhouses are starting to like 300,000s, 300s, 400s. And then there was information about comparables, other neighborhoods that are comparable and everything else. And
Sure.
The question I have with that is, I guess I'll be blunt with it. If another neighborhood's selling for $500,000, $600,000, I don't see you selling for this price. You're going to sell for market value. So I really have a hard time with us saying it's going to be X amount of dollars when we see everything around it is not that. So.
And my concern with that is they're not going to be built out for, 4 or 5 years, I think you said?
Yeah.
So can you say 300 to 400 today, which probably won't be 300 to 400 in 5
Right.
years?
Well, I mean, it will vary over time,
Right.
without a doubt. The price point that you've got now is this price point, which is a very, favorable price point.
Yep.
Those that are 55 and over, that larger majority of them are now retired. So they're looking at homes in this price range.
Okay.
And so if you're trying to target 55 and over, you almost have to look at the price point that will attract them to come in, or otherwise they're not going to come into the community. So I think that's what you're looking at. That's what you're looking at in terms of those price points. And it all varies. I mean, it
Yeah.
varies depending on the interest rates or whatever, but these are the price points that this developer is looking at doing, knowing what the market is and wanting to attract folks to move to Rolesville so that you have some diversity in your community, or a variety of different types of folks living in the community. And the nice part of this is you move the 55 and over out further from the center city areas. It is more affordable, and that's what folks want. You know, in our location, we were further out. Now, the growth is coming all around us, so it is changing. But this is the opportunity you have here, is to provide that opportunity to offer some housing that is a more affordable price point.
So with the, there's a restriction obviously on these for 55 plus to purchase.
Correct.
What about if a company comes in and buys some of them? Is that an option? They buy some, they rent them to 55 plus? Like, how does that work?
It depends on what the restrictions are in the
Okay.
community and how the restrictive covenants deal with that. I mean, I guess conceivably it could happen, but really the focus of that kind of market is not 55 and over, because that's a restriction they have to deal with.
Right, okay.
Okay? They have to deal with the 55 and over restriction.
Okay.
I mean, when I moved in, I was over 55, my wife wasn't, so I had, we qualified for
Right.
that reason.
Because the worst thing I hate to see is a company come in, buy a bunch of these, jack the price up on them, and still, I mean, you still have to meet the 55 plus, but if we're talking affordable, we're trying to get somebody in here, we're trying to get somebody,
Right.
if they want to be 55 plus, live there, we want them to be able to buy something there. I don't want them,
It's more likely that you'll see that in traditional neighborhoods than a 55 and over.
okay,
It's a whole lot easier for a company that wants to come in and buy houses and rent them to do that with standard homes that don't have a restriction.
okay, all right,
And they're always after the easiest way.
all right, thank you.
One question for you, sir, is can you elaborate on the runoff and Lake Serenity?
The runoff, we have to control the runoff, and it cannot be worse than it is now. It has to be better, and that's by law, federal, state law. So we have to do that. There was a concern by the adjoining neighborhood, but we reached an agreement with them. Their concern more had to do with, over time, their lake has gotten sediment in it, and so it won't hold as much water, and there's a lot of water coming down toward that lake. So we reached an agreement with them to help them finance that, to be able to keep it maintained, so it lessens the impact. And it's not just this development that creates that impact, it's the whole basin out there, so it's other properties. But we worked with them to help them with their concern.
Thank you.
And that's not a condition of this. I'll say upfront, it's not a condition, it's a side agreement, but it's something that we were willing to do to try to address their concern.
So I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I do appreciate the amount of information that you have given us, because I feel like finally the questions that we have asked and that our citizens have asked have been addressed. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have worked for the past few years with seniors in long-term care insurance, so I know what the need is like, and I know about the 55-plus developments and the affordable senior housing. I do know all that. But I did go a further step, and I did reach out to people that live in the communities, that work in the communities, and I even corresponded with some people who are younger, but they're planning to move to those communities, and they have nothing but great things to say about it. How they ride around in the golf carts, and how they have all these activities for people their own age, and they have nothing but great things have been said about them. And I know that the need is great and that it is there. So I'm interested in that. I do see some other pluses, some pros to the neighborhood. There are some cons. Traffic is a huge one. I do appreciate the fact that there will be no more than, I believe it's 3 units per acre throughout the whole plan. And I think that it could be a lot worse in that area, but with the high school there, that is a great concern of mine. So this is not an easy development, in my opinion, to sit on this side of the table to discuss. But I do see both pros and cons with the development, right, that is, as it has been presented to us today. And again, thank you for all the information, because we do
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Well, and the big thing you got to keep in mind is Fowler Road will be built, which is very important for traffic, not only for this development, but the community as a whole. So you have to kind of keep that in mind as well. Any development generates traffic. I mean, that's a given. But this development is going above and beyond in terms of trying to mitigate that impact, which is the whole goal, is to mitigate that impact. And I will say, as far as activities, I mean, we have clubs like crazy. For those of us that are still working, we've got what we call a working stiffs club. So those that are working get together, but there's always something going on. Pickleball club, whatever else, just groups of folks getting together to enjoy the community. And the nice part about it is you get to get in when you're 55, single floor, main living. And as you get older, it's there for you when you're more challenged. I mean, and that's the reality of it. And so the second floor, all that is something extra for family, friends, that sort of thing. And if you look at the model homes, if you were able to go through any of those or look at the houses that are built, I mean, a lot of that upstairs, it may be just a rec room type stuff upstairs with a bedroom and a bath. Or just another living area. So if you got family or friends that are up there, they've kind of got a suite where they can come and visit and live and stay with you. So that becomes a really nice amenity to have.
Linwood, did you have any additional questions? I know you asked about the sewer line. Was there any more that you had?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
I got one more. The intersection, Fowler Road, can we get a description of that for public knowledge? Like, are we doing a traffic light? Are we doing a turn lane? Are we doing a protected turn lane?
I'll let Matt speak to
Okay.
that because they did the traffic study,
Okay.
so I think that makes most sense.
Thank you. And we'll call you back if a question comes up you need to answer with us.
Absolutely glad
Okay.
to do it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Matt Peach with Stanta Consulting Services. Very happy to be with you this evening. I believe Commissioner Vilga, you were asking for the recommendations for Fowler Road and how those were phrased in the report.
Yep.
Let me get you a better picture, too.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, the question is, basically, obviously, there's going to be a lot of traffic there too, but also that we're building on a single side of it right now because we're not developing the other. So I'm just curious of how it looks long-term and what we're going to do there right now if this was approved.
Correct. So what you see here is kind of a colorized version of the applicant's site plan. Fowler Road is that the road kind of along the southern property boundary, as you can see there. And what you're seeing here is within the development. So obviously to the east, that's existing Fowler Road. Of course, Rolesville Road is right there. It runs north-south. But what you see kind of along the southern property boundaries, the main artery for the development, that's what we're referring to as the Fowler Road extension. So the way we were phrasing it in the report is our recommendation was to extend Fowler Road from its current terminus at Rolesville Road, where it currently ends, to the west as shown on the site plan. We also recommended to modify the existing intersection to provide full movement access from eastbound Fowler Road onto Rolesville Road. Meaning we want to provide both left and right turns out of the development. We also want to provide both left and turns into the development. We also recommended that the applicant provide adequate sight distance for the eastbound approach of Fowler Road at the intersection. Kind of in short, it's really important that cars will be able to see a sufficient distance along Rolesville Road to make a turn onto Rolesville Road safely, right? That was something that we wanted to be explicit about in the report and the recommendations because where Fowler Road currently ties into Rolesville Road, there's both horizontal and vertical curvature there, so we felt it was really important to make that recommendation explicit in the report.
Can we not get a light? I mean, is that, I know the DOT has to approve it, but is that something that we can push the agenda on?
It certainly is. It's worth a conversation with NCDOT. This is one of the few kind of, I'll refer to like public intersections or public road intersections along this section of Rolesville Road that doesn't currently have a light either planned or in some phase of development right now.
In your opinion, as a traffic engineer, would you not recommend that we need a light at that with this development coming on?
Yep. Yeah, so we recommended that there was the next bullet in the report is that we recommended that the intersection be evaluated against the warrants for the installation of a traffic signal as outlined in the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and that if warranted and approved by NCDOT, a traffic signal is recommended to be installed at the intersection. So we recommended that a signal be installed. Of course, NCDOT is the permitting and maintaining entity for this, so obviously they have the final say, but we definitely recommended a signal be installed.
That makes me nervous.
Me too.
Yeah, we can't get one at the high school, so they won't even approve that one. So one thing, I guess, while you're up, Matt, I know last time there was some confusion on how old your numbers are.
Yeah.
You know, people are now going beyond, you know, retirement age than they did years ago. And we didn't really get clear understanding how old those numbers are. So are they old numbers, or they been updated, or what?
So you heard from the applicant earlier, these rates that we use to develop anticipated traffic to and from developments, those are all collected, analyzed, and published by the entity that's referred to as the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They provide these manuals that we then use to kind of forecast traffic, if you will, for certain developments. They publish that manual every so many years. It's not a set schedule, but just for purposes of our discussion, let's say every 5 years they issue a new manual. They go through the process of reviewing the data that they have, making sure that it's accurate for the times, if you will, and then either adding new data or subtracting data. So I don't have it committed to memory exactly how old the data is for that particular land use, because to be honest, it varies for each individual land use what the data is. One good example is that I guess early in the 2000s, around 2009, one big change was the amount of traffic generated by banks. And that was truthfully because of the adoption of online banking, right? Fewer people nowadays go to banks just because all of the functionality you have online. So they do update those things, but the data, it could be, it's certainly not within the last few years since, certainly since the pandemic, right? But would it be within the last 2 or 3 decades? Certainly. Right.
So I see in here the resources that were used. It says Trip Generation 11th edition, September 2021.
Correct.
Is that going to be it?
That is it. That's correct. And that's the latest we have. Yep. And it's it would be great if we had newer data, right? But that's currently the national standard, and it's the state of the practice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anything else from this end? How about Dan? You got any follow-up questions?
No, sir. Everything was asked.
Michael, Paul?
Good.
Appreciate it.
That's it, Matt. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure for you to come. You help us a lot when it comes to transportation. And get us a light at the high school. That's what we want. So that's what we need. Any follow-up questions with the applicant or Meredith, either one? Because I know Meredith provided some information to
Be
you.
glad to answer any other questions you might have.
I think we're questioned out. So
Okay.
Meredith, any questions for her? All right, well, take us to the finish line again, Meredith. What do we, you want to put the slide up? Back up?
Yes. We have a slide for proposed motions.
Okay, thank you. So, once again, board, I will entertain a motion from anybody who want to put one out there.
I would like to do a motion to approve rezoning RAZ 2401 of the Marriott property.
Okay, so that's approved. Second. Got a motion and second. How about any other discussion, board? Any other discussion?
None, sir.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was unanimous, I think. that right? You want to keep going? We got to do the second one?
I've done my part.
Okay. So we need a following motion to adopt a plan consistency
I'll
statement.
move
Anybody-
to adopt plan consistency statement and statement of reasonableness for REZ-24-01.
We got a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed on that one. And then a third motion from somebody.
A motion to approve the voluntary annexation petition received under GS 160A-31 for ANX 2402 Merritt property.
Okay. We got a
Second.
motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed. Thank you, board. Appreciate that. Thank you for, I really, I think we really all needed that information. And you,
Yes.
not only did you provide good information, but you had experience and firsthand information. And I think that added a little bit. So appreciate that a lot. And I do want to close by saying, I didn't want to say this before the board vote because I didn't want to, influence or try to influence, make it look like I'm influencing anybody. But, I think this was a good project to have in town, something that kind of fits on our overall thing, those with veterans and I call them senior citizens, but what is the name y'all kind of use?
Over
Active.
55. Active
Active over
Please
55.
stop saying senior living.
I know some of my terminology from the little county I'm from probably confuses people at times, but everybody's got a different definition. ARP has one, federal government has one, everybody has a different definition. But I do want to thank the board. You really took your time and, got a really, really good questions and good product. And I really appreciate the additional conditions. And I think I'll lastly say that the folks from Senery Lake, they came out, Serenity, right? Serenity Lake. They came out and pretty much asked us, could we help them in some way with the settlement and stuff? And we can't do that. I mean, it's not in town. We can't do that. But it sounds like developers stepped up and did that. I see you guys nodding your heads out there because that's really what you wanted was help with the existing things. So I commend y'all working together. So appreciate that. Thanks. I feel good about this. So thanks everybody for your hard work. I got 8:35 by that clock or 8:40 by I think actual time. So we've been going for a little over an hour and a half. Let's take a short break. We got another public hearing come up. So let's take a short break. According to here, let's be back at 8:45 by that clock, 8:45. Thank you, appreciate it. We adjourning. Okay, we're calling back to order the Rolesville Town Board meeting. We do have some new business to start with. First item is to receive the fiscal year 2023-2024 audit presentation. So Amy, are you starting that off? Come up. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So this will be the second half of my update, and then that will lead naturally into the financial statements presentation from the town's auditor. So getting into some of the numbers, as we finished out fiscal year 23-24, oh, I have not put that on the screen. As we finished out 23-24, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about where we are for this first quarter of 24-25. So our last fiscal year ended June 30 of 2024. We do a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year. And, you know, I normally don't like showing charts like these because they're not very user-friendly, but this shows you a little bit more of what I wanted to talk about how we ended up with 23-24. So I hope maybe that'll help a little bit. We'll talk about that column. This chart shows you the revenues and the expenditures, and then down here at the bottom, where I really want to talk about is the fund balance and how things ended up. So if you think about this in terms of your personal budget, revenues, that's like your income from your wages. Expenditures is what you spend on mortgage and groceries, et cetera, et cetera. Fund balance is sort of like savings, right? So if you bring in more wages than you spend, you add to savings. If you live beyond your means and you spend more than your income, you're going to be spending out of your savings, and it's going to be a negative number. So you can see for FY 23-24 in your general fund, which is where your operating budgets are. These are annual operating appropriations. When you give budget, those budgets expire on June 30th. And so this shows you that snapshot of how your revenues and expenditures were for that 12-month period. So fund balance change down here at the bottom was about $1.6 million, which is good. We want that to be a positive number, especially as a growing community. As a growing community, we have to save more and more fund balance over time because our expenditures grow year over year, typically, and you want fund balance to be a certain percentage of expenditures. You have to have a certain number of months of cash on hand to keep operating. So 1.6 is good news. I do want to caveat that a little bit. That doesn't mean there's $1.6 million of cash ready to spend. So about half of that fund balance, that 1.6 million, is actually already been earmarked into the new fiscal year. So if you remember, as we got towards, we finished out the budget process and we were working in the spring, we talked about bringing yard waste in-house. And we appropriated some money to buy some very large pieces of equipment that take months to receive. Those are very expensive pieces, and we did not receive those by June 30th, and so that's made up with some of that 1.6 million in savings. We turned around and reappropriated that in the next year because now the trucks are finishing up and coming in, and we need to have the money to pay for those, okay? The other half of that 1.6 million is, if you remember, again, during the budget process, we planned out a 5-year capital improvement plan, looking at what projects you wanted to fund: streets, sidewalks, buildings, police station, fire station, parks, and looking at your sources of revenue. We anticipated that we would have some fund balance coming out of this year, and so that some of that money that's showing here has already been plugged into that 5-year CIP model to make that capital plan a reality. Okay? I'm going to quickly move over here for first quarter of 25. This one's a negative number. However, it's not a cause for concern at this point in the year. We've talked several times about how ad valorem property tax revenue comes in November and December. And so we're operating off of those cash reserves July, August, and September, okay? Because this is where we were September 30th. So if you look at the Q2 report from December 31st, and that's a negative number, then you need to start asking some questions. But right now, we're where we expect to be. Okay, so that's operating annual appropriations. I'm going to move on to capital programming. You have 2 capital project funds. Capital projects are typically long-term projects. When you appropriate a budget, that budget is good for the life of the project, and it goes on multiple years quite often. The way those projects are funded, especially if we're doing pay-as-you-go, paying cash for these projects, we're basically using the savings for somewhere else to fund that project, okay? And I'm telling you all that because it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a negative fund balance in a capital project fund, because we know we're paying for these projects from previously saved money, okay? Now, in this case, for FY24, that is a negative number. It's not as big as I would expect it to be. If you'll notice up here, your streets related and parks related, these numbers are significantly higher than they've been in the past. These are those impact fees from development for parks and streets. And the reason it's significantly higher is you're starting to see the impact from some of your commercial developments coming in and the impact fees that they're paying for those commercial developments, okay? Now, residential income, it kind of trickles in on a consistent basis, but when we get those commercial permits, it's a big hit all at once. And we saw some of that in FY23-24. Down here at the LAP Grants Fund, so this is primarily your Main Street project. And I know I just said that typically capital projects are going to be using savings, but the way that this project is structured, we are expecting, because of the grant funds coming in, the reimbursements from private development, this last year and this year both had positive to fund balance, but next year and the year after is where we're going to be using up that savings that's been accumulating in the first couple of years. Okay, so again, nothing surprising here when you understand the complexity of the project and the funding sources. Okay. And then both of those, as you can see, they're just spending their savings in FY25, as expected. With that, I'm going to turn things over to the folks at Cherry Becker. We have April Adams here. She's going to present the financial statements to you and the results of their audit of those statements. You should have copies of both her presentation as well as the actual statements themselves in front of you. So April, I'll get your presentation pulled up here. And then you can just page down.
Well, while she's pulling it up, thank you for coming, April. I know you've almost had a 2-hour wait, but appreciate you waiting, and thank you for coming out.
As long as I'm not getting home at midnight, it's fine. All right, let's see. So I am excited to be here. I'm going to struggle between the glasses and not glasses. I'm not at that 55 age yet, but I'm having the glasses struggle. So I am excited to be here to deliver the results for the June 30th, 2024 financial statement audit. These are the things that I'm going to cover with you tonight. Just to introduce the client service team itself, the results of the audit. You did receive what we call a single audit. That is the grant over, or the audit over the grant dollars that you received, primarily that LAP project that she was just talking about. I just want to talk a little bit about internal controls and how those are a part of our audit and how we report on those. And then a lot of the rest of this is just required communication. So things that we're required to either confirm to you did or didn't exist during the audit, or happened or didn't happen during the audit. And so I'll cover all of that as quickly as I can, just because a lot of it's just this didn't happen, or whatnot. So we'll cover that as fast as we can. All right, so I like this slide because it helps reiterate that we are your external auditors and that we do work for you, the Board of Commissioners. We are hired by you and we report to you, even though most of the work we do is conducted, communicating with most of the members of staff throughout the engagement. So I'm the engagement director, and that means that I'm the one that signs the reports on behalf of the firm and accepts responsibility for that. And then I lead the team, so I'm also setting the audit plan and making sure at the end that we've done what we plan to do and that everything is in order as far as our files and testing in order to give that opinion. Our firm does require that every audit that we perform is also reviewed by somebody of similar level to me. And so Scott Anderson performed that review, and we call that the quality review. And so he's also looking behind to make sure that I'm doing what we're supposed to do as a firm and as your external auditor. Albert Ong served as your audit manager. He's been the audit manager for a couple of years now, but he helps me execute that plan along with the staff and seniors. We did introduce a new senior to the team this year. That's Carly Coleman. She's very experienced in government audit, so it's good to have her on the team and help execute the plan and all the testing along with Parker and several other staff throughout the engagement. All right, so the big news tonight is the results of the audit. I am happy to report that we did complete the audit. We dated it October 25th, so just a little while ago we issued that report. We issued what we call an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance we can give you as an audit firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. And so what that means is that we assess the risk of the areas of your financial statements, and then we test according to that. So that means we didn't come in and test every single transaction. We focused in on where we think they're most likely to be wrong, and so we test for that. As I mentioned, we also did what we call a single audit, so we did test a program for that, and so we'll talk about that, but that was also an unmodified opinion issued related to that testing. All right, so single audit. We did test what we call the Highway Planning and Construction Grant. That is your Main Street project, and so we are required to test compliance requirements related to that, as well as controls to make sure that you're staying in compliance with all those requirements. And so that's quite a bit of deep dive within the expenditures and revenues that come in for that to ensure that it's spent according to the grant requirements. And so we've done that, and we didn't identify any issues as far as that goes. All right, so internal controls. Our audit, we are performing it in accordance with auditing standards, and those standards require for us to identify what we deem to be the significant transaction cycles. So if you think about how does the town receive cash, how does the town disperse cash, how does the town make its payroll, and then lastly, how does the town take the information out of the financial system and actually produce the financial statements that you have in front of you. We look at the controls around that process to make sure that all the numbers and activity that happened during the year actually show up in those statements. So what we do is we get all the policies and procedures related to those significant transaction cycles, and we actually read through them and do what we call a test of one. So we're walking through an example from the initiation all the way through how it gets reported. And then from there, we decide if we actually want to test any of those controls and kind of rely upon them as a part of our assurance that we're giving on your financial statements. We do that for cash disbursements, so we actually test a larger sample of cash disbursements to make sure that the controls are operating effectively, and we also do it for payroll. And so we are testing controls over that. One thing that all of the words on this slide is telling you, though, is that we don't issue an opinion on your internal control environment. We actually just report, and are required by the standards to just report if we find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses within all of that work that we do. And so it's just important to know that we're not opining on your controls, we're just issuing notification if something wasn't right. So there's two types of findings that we would report. They would be either a material weakness or a significant deficiency. Material weakness obviously is worse than a significant deficiency. What we're saying with a material weakness is that your controls are not there and effective to the point that it's an opportunity to misstate your financial statements. I am happy to report that we didn't have any material weaknesses discovered during our procedure, so that's the best results that you can get. We don't actually say that about significant deficiencies, even though we have not reported any, simply because we didn't test all of the controls and processes in place, only what we deem to be the significant transaction cycle. So there is a chance that there are significant deficiencies out there that we didn't identify. All right, so as far as corrected and uncorrected misstatements, another way of saying this is audit adjustments or adjusting journal entries. So From the time that we start the audit and we are provided the trial balance or the general ledger from Amy and her staff, we are on the hook to report to you if any journal entries are identified as a result of our testing. Whether either they get booked or whether we deem that they don't need to be booked, but they're enough for us to let you know that they weren't booked, but we're okay with it because your financial statements are still materially stated. So corrected statements means the entries were actually booked. We did have one entry that resulted from our inquiry and looking at things during the year and as we drafted the financial statements. And it happened related to an $80,000 payment that was made for debt. It was classified, it was correctly recorded as a payment. It just was incorrectly classified as to whether it was a principal payment or a payment related to interest. And so that entry was made to correct that classification. Uncorrected misstatements, those are statements that we would deem as not material. We didn't have any noted, so nothing to report there. All right, the next couple slides just talk about qualitative aspects of accounting. These are just things that we deem important for the governments to know, whether there were changes and identify certain things within those that are specific to the town's accounting practices. First would be if there was any significant changes in accounting policies. Those typically would be reported in your notes. If there were significant changes, most of the time that happens when there's a new accounting standard to follow. This is the first year, I would say, in probably 7 years that we haven't had a new standard to implement and therefore a new accounting policy to report. So happy to say no changes as far as accounting practices. This slide just talks about related parties. We are required to investigate and look for related party transactions as a part of our audit. If we find them, that we were going to test them to make sure that they were performed to arm's length. But we did not identify any significant related party transactions that we felt like we needed to test as a part of the audit. Similarly, for significant and unusual transactions, as you can imagine, if the town had a significant unusual transaction, they're probably not used to accounting for that, and it's probably so special and unusual, it's probably got special accounting that needs to go with it. So we are looking for those as a part of the audit to make sure if they did exist that they got it properly accounted for. We didn't identify any significant unusual transactions as a part of our audit. Significant estimates. So estimates are an estimate. They're management's estimate based on everything they know at the end of the year as of the date of the report. And so they are estimating certain things that may come out in the future and be different. If you think about the biggest ones you have are your pension for your employees, as well as your post-employment benefits for your employees as they retire. So those are estimates that actuaries put together based on information provided from your staff. And so we're just calling those out for what they are within your statements. We're saying they're materially stated, but we're basing them off information that's an estimate. And then lastly, it's just we are required to call out if there are any disclosures in your financial statements that we think are not neutral, consistent, or clear. Basically, what I'm saying here is that I feel like you can pick up those financial statements and read those footnotes and have a good understanding of what's going on. There's nothing unusual in there that I need to call out for you tonight. As I mentioned before, we are your external auditors, and so that means that we are required to maintain independence throughout the engagement. And part of that independence is to evaluate, are we doing anything else to serve a need for the town that's not the audit. And so what we do is we do prepare the financial statements. So we take the general ledger that Amy and her team provide to us, and then we create the document that's in front of you. And so we have to make sure throughout that process that we're not making management decisions about anything and how it's presented. And so part of our ability to maintain that independence is Amy's ability to be to have the skills, knowledge, and expertise to accept the work that we've done as if it was hers. So we are able to assess that. Amy has the skills, knowledge, and expertise, and we did maintain our independence, and so that's what I'm reporting to you tonight. All right, so the next two slides have a lot of different topics for me to cover. A lot of them are just that nothing occurred. So first one would be that we didn't incur any difficulties as a part of the audit. We didn't have any disagreements with management during the audit. We did not consult any other auditors as any kind of special expertise that we would need on any topic during the audit. And then the last one here in orange is very important to me, is that we obtain a management rep letter as a part of our audit at the close of the audit. Our audit's pretty much only as good as the information that's provided to us, and there's lots of management representations that are made about different things along the way in the audit that we rely on in order to give the opinion. And so we collect all of those items that happen throughout the audit. Most of it's a standard list, but sometimes there are some special items that we'll put in there and make sure that it's clear that we are basing our opinion on what's been represented to us during the audit. We're not aware that management consulted any other accountants on any special items as a part of the audit. We don't have any other findings or other issues that we feel like we need to bring to your attention as a result of the audit. While our audit is not for the purpose of finding fraud and illegal acts, we would have to test every single transaction that happened during the year to be able to say that it was. So, but we are on the hook for if we identify any fraud or illegal acts as a part of our audit to bring that to your attention. We didn't find anything of that sort during our audit. And then lastly, going concern. The audit standards do require us to evaluate, is the town going to be here a year from now? And so we are able to affirm that we don't have any substantial doubt that we do believe that you'll be here a year from our report date. It's good, right? All right. Other matters, it just kind of talks about how our opinion covers all the various things that are in that document in front of you. Our initial opinion is just on the basic financial statements themselves, so that's the core information of the statements and the footnotes. And then these things just call out the required supplementary information, so that is the management discussion and analysis portion of the report, as well as the data that is presented. It's like 10 years worth of data that's presented related to your pension plan and your OPEB plan. We don't actually opine on that information that's in the report, but we do review it to make sure it doesn't contradict anything that we are opining on. And then the supplementary information, that is your fund statements that show up behind the footnotes. We do give what we call an in relation to opinion. So those fund statements do tie up to the front, therefore we extend our opinion over those statements as well. All right, last slide. Upcoming financial reporting changes. So these are the new accounting standards that the board has come out with for us to follow and implement and continue to evolve financial reporting as the world evolves. So the first one would be compensated absences. Currently, the town only reports vacation time as a compensated absence. It historically has not recorded sick leave along with the rest of governments in America, but they are pulling that in and they want an estimate reported as how much sick leave is actually going to be taken and actually paid in cash to your employees. Most employees of governments they'll say their sick leave and use it as credits towards their pension. So they're not asking for that amount to be recorded. They're asking for the ones that, when somebody actually takes a sick day and it results in their payment in their payroll. The next three are kind of specific to the situation, certain risk disclosures. So you would just have to evaluate every year, is there something going on in the environment in the area of town that's affecting the town of Rolesville's ability to generate revenue, basically, is what they want you to disclose and call out if something like that's occurring. GASB 103 is about financial reporting model improvements. This was going to be a much bigger standard than it was. They backed off a lot of the requirements that were going to be in changes that were going to happen for financial reporting, so it's kind of not as big a deal and you won't see as many changes, but there'll be things like your budget to actual statements that are up front. They may end up being now in the RSI where we don't opine on them. So things like that will come down. That's not till fiscal year 26, so we've got 2 more years to get more comfortable in exactly how that's going to impact you guys. And then the last one is GASB 104, disclosures about certain capital assets. I don't know if you remember or not, but recently we've added the leases and subscriptions for information technology as assets to your financial statements. This standard is really kind of clarifying exactly how much of that stuff needs to be disclosed. So and some other things, very specific things about capital assets they want to disclose, but not going to be a big impact at all. All right, so that's all I have for you guys tonight. I'll be glad to take any questions you might have.
Just thank you for doing this audit for us. It definitely shows how valuable Amy and her staff is.
Yeah, and they're great to work with. They right there giving you everything you need, because an audit is an endless ask for information. So they're very good at turning around and providing us what we ask for. You guys are a growing town. You're getting more and more funds and have more and more activities. So it's not my fault. It's y'all's fault. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the first year, I think it was like 2020 was, the pandemic was happening when Amy called and asked if we would do it. And so I want to say 2020 was the first year that we did the audit. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you, sir. Again, my name is Mike Ellebarger, Assistant Planning Director here. The Planning Director, Meredith Gruber, is also here this evening. This is a voluntary annexation petition for 1413 Forestville Road. Quick orientation here. This is a 5.4 acre tract of land. Outlined there in red, you see Heritage High School to the northwest of it, Regency at Heritage Subdivision. This is about a 2021 aerial, so just earthwork was done there, just to give you some orientation to those landmarks. This is the survey of the property. North is up on this drawing. Directly across Forestville Road from this property is that Wake Forest Fire Department station. And I colored in the big lake that you see. You can't help but drive by and you see that nice blue lake there, just to give it some context. So yes, this is a legislative hearing that needs to be opened by the board, and we have motions there at the end to approve, deny, or an alternate motion. The applicant representatives are here in the front row to my left, should you have any questions for them. Mayor. I'm going to let the applicant speak to the why. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tae Park. I'm a professional land planner. I used to work for town of Wake Forest, town of Rolesville, as a planner. I'm kind of old right now. I'm retiring right now. I'm representing Maria and Augusto Ramirez for this property located at 1413 Forestville Road, requesting annexation in town of Rolesville. There's two strong reasons it needs to be annexed. Number one is the property is located and surrounded by the properties in the town of Rolesville subdivisions. So this is kind of in like a donut situation. All surrounding area is town of Rolesville townships. And I see to annex this property in town of Rolesville can unify the neighborhood, then spot housing types. So all other housing areas, a driveway, carport, like siding, but this one is a little different. So that's one reason. Second main strong reason is that, as you see, the pond is located in the property, and then from the house to the available septic field is about 800 feet away. That means the septic line with the pipe has go through those kind of along this driveway, skinny driveway into the house. There is a danger and risky to the public safety because there is a leakage can be happen. And then with this hydric soil types around the lake, it's very dangerous to using septic field. So there is a municipal water and sewer along the Rolesville area. So this is the strongly, efficient to use the city water and sewer for this property. So this kind of different situation than other properties because other properties doesn't want to be annexed because of tax reasons, but this need to be annexed in town of Rolesville to utilize the municipal water and sewer lines. If you have any question, I can answer any questions. Thank you. Yes. There is accessible water and sewer lines along Rolesville Road. Yeah, it's not easy, simple, because we have to go through the Rolesville Road. We have to build, the boring, expensive, it costs a lot of money. But this is very safe especially safe for the housings around the pond area. It's beneficial for every neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So on screen are your motion options here to either approve or deny the request.
I move to approve the voluntary annexation petition received under GS 160A-31 for Annex-24-04, 1413 Forestville Road.
Second.
Got me on the next one as well. Yes, sir. I'm going to lead on this one as well. Thank you very much. Yes, so we have a rezoning and voluntary annexation for a property in a project known as Scarborough Apartments. Briefly, this is 3 tracts of land, 0 South Main Street, 201 South Main Street, and then a property addressed as 200 School Street. It is that tiny little, it's the triangle in the bottom left corner that requires annexation. It's not in town limits as we speak. The total property acreage is 13.15 acres. There's one owner, ComDev LLC, and all the properties are zoned RL, residential low density zoning as we speak. That little triangle is in the ETJ of the town, so it is zoned under the town's LDO currently. So the request is again to go from that RL, residential low density zoning, to a town center conditional zoning district. This would be the second town center zoning district that the town has. The Cobblestone Development Site is the other one, and also Main Street Park is zoned that was rezoned in about the 2021 year. This rezoning comes with a set of 23 conditions of approval that are in your packet. Just real highlights here, and the applicant's presentation has a much more detailed explanation of all of these. But it does commit to a concept site plan. There are a list of prohibited uses. The residential component is capped at 240 multifamily units. There's a minimum and maximum of commercial component to that in a mixed setting. There are various site design commitments made throughout the property and on its perimeters. There are some considerations in a condition about that stone building that exists at the front of the property along Main Street. there are financial and unit donations included, and there are 2 off-site infrastructure improvements being proposed. The applicant held 2 neighborhood meetings, one back in February and another on April 15th. The traffic impact analysis was performed by Stantec. That is included here, and as you already know, Mr. Peach from Stantec is here to speak about that study. And then there's that little triangle in the corner, the piece of property that does need to be voluntarily annexed parallel to this rezoning should it be approved. Policy-wise, the future land use map does identify this area. Sorry, the next slide hones in, but I want to show you the big picture here. All of this brown here is the high-density residential category. You see it here in the list. So, next slide. So that's the little property, 13-acre property that's subject to this rezoning. But here again, you can see that brown category of the high-density residential. And if we analyze this area, all of this here is the Parker Ridge development, which was rezoned a year and a half ago through preliminary subdivision. That has now come in. It's a solid 3.2 units per acre. So not high-density residential as the outcome of that rezoning and that subdivision has occurred. Of course, this is the town campus project property, and that will have no residential density to it. This property is currently undeveloped, and there's no entitlements on it whatsoever. So there are the few properties here in front of the Scarborough assemblage, all the way over to School Street are also in there. And most of those, all of those are developed with small, single-family original buildings. So there's not much remaining area of this high-density residential category left to consider. And on the right there is right from the comprehensive plan, the description of what that high-density residential future land use category is described as. Staff's overall analysis finds that this request, the zoning district and the project that it's committing to, is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, meaning that high-density residential land use is fulfilled by the project being committed to with this rezoning request. It commits to building a community transportation plan thoroughfare. It is that north-south road that would come from the town campus property all the way to South Main Street. It complies with the Greenways plan by providing a key greenway connection, again from the south to the north at Main Street. And it fulfills many aspects of the Main Street vision plan about mixing of uses, density of residential and density of uses near the core of town, which is described as South Main Street, etc. There's some bulleted items here. I won't go through them. These are also in the staff memo, but these are basically the supportable points from all of these policy plans that the town has adopted over the years. As mentioned, the applicant is present here. They have a full, lengthy presentation going into every detail of their commitments and their conditions of approval and the generality of their request. And then we have all the various motions that the board may wish to contemplate this evening. At this point, I'll turn it over to the applicant, unless you have any immediate questions for staff. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Worth Mills with Longleaf Law Partners, here on behalf of the property owners and the rezoning applicant. Joining me this evening are Matthew and Barbara Shuey, who are the current property owners, Kenyon Burnham and Peter Crossett with KDM Development, Courtney McQueen, our engineer with Cunity, could not be here tonight. She's nursing 2 sick children, but she's the other member of this development team. So as Michael said, we are proposing to rezone approximately 13 acres from residential low density to the town center conditional district. And the goal is to develop standalone retail, mixed-use buildings, and standalone multifamily buildings. And the rezoning and the associated zoning conditions are consistent with the town's land use goals for this area and for the Main Street corridor, and they provide significant public benefits to the surrounding area. So the town has put a tremendous amount of investment into Main Street and into establishing this downtown core. We have the Main Street improvements going on now. And we also have that Main Street Vision Plan passed, I believe, back in 2018 that outlines the goals that the town has for Main Street and to create a true destination downtown. The photo on the right-hand side is this right opportunity or firm analysis that was conducted back when that plan was passed. This property is identified as being ripe for development and is in a situation to really further the goals that the town has put forward for what Main Street should look like in the future. This is an aerial of the site. We front along South Main Street, Perry Street, and School Street. Rolesville Elementary is directly across us on School Street. To our southeast is the town-owned property where the town campus project is being programmed, and then the Perry subdivision over to the east of us. We are under a half mile from the food line, and we're a quarter mile from the Main Street and Young Street intersection. So this is the current zoning map on the property. Most of the properties on the south side of Main Street zoned for residential low density, but there are a mix of commercial and town center zoning within the span of Rogers Road to Young Street. And so we think that this is another area identified in future land use map plans and Main Street plans that can support that town center zoning. As Michael mentioned, the future land use map identifies this property as high-density residential. The descriptions of both high-density residential and town center are fairly similar. Town center, slightly more density, but both call for a mix of uses. High-density residential calls for limited commercial uses that can complement and support or be supported by the residents that live there. And town center district includes the types of uses that one would find in a downtown center. So we think that although we're not hitting the future land use map designation squarely on the nose, our conditions bring us into consistency with that high-density residential designation. So just going back to that Main Street Vision Plan, again, a policy that the town wants to lay out for what Main Street's going to look like. And obviously, Main Street is not a monolith. There are different zones. This property is pretty much in the heart of what was described as the village core. And that's where you're going to find those mix of uses that are going to both bring residents to go and shop, eat, enjoy just a third space. But you're also going to want a program for a lot of people to be there already who can walk and bike to those same uses without having to get into a car. And so again, this rezoning really capitalizing on the plans that the town has put forward for Main Street. So to get into the plan itself, I did want to hit some high notes before diving into the zoning conditions. Let's see. So to give you a high-level look at this plan, we have limited frontage on Main Street, but where we do have frontage, we're planning standalone retail to, again, build out that Main Street feel. You can see the collector street that we're proposing and I'll touch on it in a second, but we're going to extend that street all the way past our property line into the town-owned property to connect with the street that the Parker Ridge development committed to when they were getting rezoned. And I'll show you what that's going to do to the street network in just a second. But standalone retail along Main Street, 2 mixed-use buildings along this new collector street, ground floor retail, commercial spaces, apartments above, and then 4 purely residential buildings in the interior and along School Street. Along with the collector street, as Michael mentioned, we are providing a greenway on the eastern side of this collector street that will extend up to South Main Street. So I did want to touch on zoning conditions, and I've broken them down into different categories to help digest them. So we do have a number of prohibitions on uses that are otherwise permitted in the TC district. Some of the uses that we prohibited are hotel and those larger type shopping centers, both of which bring a lot of traffic, bring a lot of people that are not, long-term residents. They're staying for a couple nights. So uses that we knew we did not want to bring forward here. Again, capping development at a maximum of 240 dwelling units, non-commercial uses between 10,000 and 20,000 square feet. We can't build more than 120 units before we've permitted at least 5,000 square feet of that non-residential space. We're limiting hours of operation for that non-residential space to 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., so coffee shop to a restaurant. We want to document the existing yet uninhabitable home up on South Main Street with photographs and detailed elevation drawings. We do plan to remove that house, but we also have a condition that says that we will advertise for a period of time before demolition if any third party wants to remove all of the house, or if there are any building materials that can be salvaged and used in future developments, they would have that opportunity as well. So want to provide as much opportunity for preservation of that house as we can. Turning over to transportation conditions, so we have prohibited access onto School Street. We want to leave that effectively as almost a private drive for the elementary school, for the parents and teachers to use without us bringing additional traffic onto School Street. As I mentioned, we are going to be extending this new collector street past our property line and to build out a complete street network with the street that Parker Ridge committed to during their rezoning. Just under by right development today, any property owner would have to build some of this street, but the UDO would only require that this street stub to our property line. So we want to make sure that we're not just providing a street stub, we're providing street connections and different opportunities for people to get where they need to go. And again, building that greenway path along that collector street as well. So if people want to bike or ride or walk from this development over to the library that's coming, or vice versa, if people from the library want to get coffee over at this project, we want people to have options. And this slide here, I think, does a really good job of illustrating that. So you've got the proposed development here, you've got the northern edge of the Parker Ridge development, and then you've got the town-owned campus property there shaded white. And you can see the road that Parker Ridge committed to. I know that that is currently under construction drawing review, and that will ultimately connect to Young Street. Our street will connect to theirs, and it creates a new street network for people to get from Main and Young to vice versa. So we're giving people options on ways to travel, and we're reducing as much as possible the amount of traffic that would have to go through the Perry subdivision to get from our property to Young Street without having to get on Main. So eliminating any sort of kind of cut through traffic, creating other opportunities for people to get to Young Street, or if they don't want to go left onto South Main Street, they can go south and go through Parker Ridge and get west that way. So again, trying to provide as many options as we can. Turning over to buffering to adjacent properties. So first, to the Perry Street subdivision, we've included a requirement to build an 8-foot tall fence on the edge of that greenway to buffer from any street level pedestrians, looking into backyards and whatnot. We've also offered a requirement to plant 2 shade trees per 100 linear feet along that wall to give an additional type of buffering. And we've prohibited balconies on these upper story units in the mixed use building. Any units that face the collector street, prohibiting balconies, so making sure that there's not, any sort of sight lines from those apartment units into people's backyards or homes, and really trying to look at this from both the street level and an upper story level. Buffering to the homes along Main Street, we've offered a 8-foot tall fence there as well, and we've offered 2 trees per 100 linear feet in addition to the mixed use buffer that must be provided as laid out in the UDO. And then buffering to School Street. This was something that came up at Planning Commission about trying to keep kids or parents out of this project. So we wanted to construct at least a 25-foot long wall between those 2 apartment buildings along School Street. We have not designed that wall yet. It could be in the conditions anywhere from 4 feet high to 12 feet high and may differ in some respects in height, but wanted to create some sort of barrier between those 2 apartment buildings. And we've also offered additional buffering south of that apartment building along School Street all the way to the access easement that the 4 homes south of us use to get in and out of their properties. And then turning it over to public benefits, the applicant has offered to make a $100,000 contribution to the Rolesville Fire Department. We have pledged to market 2 of the dwelling units to veterans earning no more than 80% of the area median income for 10 years. One of those units must be made available to a veteran at least 55 years old. And we have also offered to improve the existing drainage for those properties upstream along Glen Circle. So again, our project here is not going to have any sort of downstream impacts on the neighbors to our east. Their water flows through our property. But they identified they commented to us that there's an existing drainage problem along Glen Circle, and the applicant has offered to go out, evaluate it, and make up to $75,000 of improvement for a stream that is not being impacted by the development. I've got some renderings here just to show. I've only got 2, but this is a look at the potential standalone retail building along South Main Street and looking down this new collector road. And then here's a look at some of those mixed-use buildings, again, with commercial uses on the bottom floors, apartments on the upper stories. And so just to summarize, this rezoning is consistent with the town's land use policies. It brings more residents and business space to the village core area and to help establish a downtown Rolesville. The rezoning conditions significantly improve the existing street network, and they adequately buffer this development from adjacent neighbors. We're providing affordable veteran housing near the Joel Center and near other goods and services. We are increasing the tax base. For these reasons, we think that this rezoning is both reasonable and in the public interest. We appreciate your time tonight. Happy to answer any questions you have and happy to get your feedback as well. And I do know that we have one other person from our team or that wishes to speak in support. But again, thank you for your time this evening.
I have a couple if no one else has any. First question, how many parking spaces are allocated for cobblestone for the apartments?
For the cobblestone?
For cobblestone.
I don't have that.
Okay, how many are allocated for the 240 apartments you're talking about for this project?
See if I've got that available. I believe it should be on the exhibit that's included in the packet.
says 420. 420.
Thank you.
And do you recall how much commercial space is at Cobblestone?
I do not.
Okay. And yet, we've got a third more apartments here and a fraction of the commercial space, and we're still calling it a town center.
So the town center doesn't prescribe a minimum amount of.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just asking a question.
But I can explain as to the reasoning why there's less here than there is at Cobblestone. And part of that is the amount of frontage that we have along Main Street. Cobblestone has significantly more frontage along Main. And I think the standalone commercial opportunities there are a little bit more desirable. But what we have done here is where we do have Main Street frontage, we've committed to having that standalone retail that can blend into the existing kind of block face of Main Street, but also included some ground floor retail along this new collector street that we're building. So trying to bring new businesses where we can and understanding kind of the limitations that we have just in terms of visibility and frontage on Main Street.
When will this connector road be fully functional, going through the town campus and dumping out onto East Young Street?
I believe we have conditioned that to a CO within the development. I believe that is also, it's in the list of zoning conditions, which I'm trying to find in this stack of papers. But it does have to be constructed before the full build-out of the residential units.
Where does the building stop if the road's not done? How many units?
I'm going to need to find the zoning conditions. It does. So you're asking if
have you ever driven down Main Street?
I have.
In the morning, in the afternoon? It's a two-lane road. It's not changing. It is a parking lot for several hours a day. And I'm asking, we got 400, Mr. Barnum, was it 420 parking spaces for Cobblestone, somewhere in there, for the apartments?
Are you talking about for
For Cobblestone, yes, sir.
So for across the street, there are 464 parking spaces total on the project.
Allocated for the apartments?
Allocated for the apartments.
Yes, sir.
I would have to check the exact number. It's a good question, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's
So-
something to the effect of 1.8 parking spaces per apartment unit. Yeah, so 188 times 1.8 would get you about the correct number.
Yeah, so, yeah, 350 or so?
Yeah, somewhere
Somewhere
in
in
that
there.
range, I'd say. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, part of the element, part of the interesting thing about Cobblestone is that with the mix of uses on the project, we benefit from a shared parking reduction plan on that site.
No, I understand that. I'm more concerned, we'll know what the parking problem will be when it's open. And that, we can't predict, we'll experience it. It's my concern. My other concern is the traffic that's going to be impacted on an already very busy street, and there's no way to expand Main Street or Young Street. And then we're talking about another 420, based on your numbers is what I understand, from this project.
Well, I will add, I think one element to keep in mind there is that our parking count out here is a number as a requirement of the town of Rolesville statute, right? So the 420 parking spaces you're referring to, that's just us meeting the code requirements. I think it's something to the effect of 2 parking spaces per apartment unit, plus 1 per 4 for visitor parking. I may be a little off on that, so I apologize.
That's over 500.
It's not 500 on the project, though. It's something, it's
Right.
about 2 per parking. So, call it 480, but it's not, again, it is the way the calculation is run, I, have to have my engineer tell you exactly.
No,
what
I
it's
appreciate
done.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not as concerned, it's going to be an issue, I am sure, but I'm not as concerned about the parking as I am of the impact on the already problematic traffic that we have on our two-lane roads. There's no way to expand those roads. I appreciate the connector. I don't know when it'll be ready. I don't know, how that's going to be affected. Is there any traffic that could go into the Perry Street community from this development?
So, well, to answer your first question, the road has to be completed, at least in our conditions as written, by the 190th CO. I would defer to Matt Peach with regard to kind of traffic distribution among, Perry Street versus other options we have. But I can tell you that we did not originally have a condition requiring the ultimate connection to the Parker Ridge Road. And that TIA reflected a certain set of numbers. When we added the condition for the collector road, the number of anticipated trips in the TIA report went significantly down through the Perry Street subdivision. And we saw many more people using just this connector road, either to get to Young Street, or it could also be potentially used to get west. If turning left onto South Main, if you think it's going to be a long wait, get on the collector street, go through Parker Ridge, and go west that way until you hit the traffic circle. So we're not saying that we can lessen wait times and solve all traffic issues, but we can provide alternative means to get somewhere. And that is what we hope will lessen impacts on any individual intersection.
Any interest in eliminating any egress onto Main Street from this development to help mitigate the impact on Main Street?
I don't think that would be consistent with the town's transportation plans.
Just looking for a way to reduce the impact.
Reduce the impact, other than, to be honest with you, signage or a change to the town's comprehensive transportation connectivity plan, we are meeting the requirements of this project.
Understood. And I believe we're revisiting the whole comp plan for the land use as well as we speak, which may or may not change the current zoning of this land, and I know you're trying to change it anyway, but it could be that we're going to revisit the whole thought of this being a high-density area because of the road problems that we have in our town.
Are those road problems consistent throughout, including prior to the closure of that intersection that's been going on for a while?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something to be considered as part of that analysis. I agree with your point that, certainly Main Street's going to be, going to remain a two-lane road for quite some time, but the connectivity down to Young Street, most of the people that are leaving this site are going to be doing so to go to work, which is going to take them out to 401. So obviously I'm not living out there today, but if I'm going to 401, my approach is going to be take a right onto the new extension of the road through the town property, down Young Street to 401. So I think you'd see a I don't believe, especially to your point, if there is traffic issues along Main Street, then deviating myself to go to Young Street and down to 401 would make sense to me. It's also a shorter trip.
I'm done, Mr. Mayor. I'll stop. Thank you.
Just one in support.
Take two. Good evening once again. I am Brooke Dickhart, the Executive Director of the Joel Fund, and I would like to start off by saying that I do not receive any benefit from this project, but I have been involved in some meetings with Wake County Housing. We've been doing having a lot of conversations around our growing population of homeless veterans and how we can get creative to help solve this problem across the county. And this was an opportunity that I support because it does provide some housing options and in a proximity that is close to the Joel Center. So it's not only housing, but then they have direct access to the resources that are very important to them. I have had conversations with Wake County, and their government leadership has a strategic plan to focus on two very specific veteran initiatives. One is to increase affordable housing units to 2,500 units in the next 5 years. The next priority is to increase the number of veterans connected to their benefits by 4% by 2029. And the reason that is important is because when the veterans in our community increase their benefits, that money comes back into our communities. So it is very important that we find the spaces for these veterans. We get them connected to the benefits that they have earned through their service. We get them housed, we get these services, and then they become great members in our communities. I just think that this aligns with what Rolesville is doing in the area, and together we're creating a safe community specifically designed to meet the unique needs of our veterans. So that was all I just wanted to say. I think it's a great opportunity for them. Thank you.
Well, it is good to see everybody again, and I had planned on maybe coming up here and making a statement first, but I understand the need to ask questions. I think we kind of view this as an ongoing conversation with you all. We're open to suggestions. I want this to be conversational. So if you do have questions and you're not asking them, regardless of how either blunt or however you perceive them, I really invite you to ask them. I like to talk about this stuff. It is a passion of mine. We love this community. We're invested in it. We're looking to expand that investment and are continuing to try to find ways to, we think, improve Rolesville. I think this opportunity here adds a lot of what we would like to call kind of upper income, middle attainable housing opportunity. Most of the people that live in my units, some are earning somewhere to the $90,000 to $100,000 a year range, some into that $80,000, some into that $70,000 a year range. But your nurses, your firefighters, your teachers, your police officers, we have a large presence of those individuals living in our units. We also have a large presence of tech employees and finance individuals and you name it that enjoy our product. I'll add, I think, I understand some of the concerns around, I think, density in downtown. Certainly appreciate the concerns around traffic. I'd invite you to ask Stantec at length, their opinions of the project. I will say this is the most comprehensive traffic impact analysis I've ever been involved with, ever commissioned. I think it's fantastic. I think it seems to cover all the ins and outs of the project. As Worth had said, Mr. Mills had said earlier, we have offered to make additional extensions out here to try to mitigate the impact as much as possible. If there were options for us to add calming abilities to keep people from going out on a main street, it's certainly something we'd be willing to consider. If anyone, we're open to conversations like that. That's kind of what I mean by make this a conversational process. We're open to these suggestions. From the financial benefits of the project, hard to say exactly what the annual property tax bill for something like this is, but it's certainly north of $250,000 a year in income to Rolesville. Not sure how that gets split up, I should say, but assuming a lot of that goes to Rolesville. Permitting fees associated with the project, as brought up earlier during the fiscal year budget review. Some of these commercial assets coming online do bring in significant amounts of revenue to the town of Rolesville. This project we calculate is somewhere in the $1.3 to $1.4 million range in entitlement fees, permitting fees that get paid at closing or at pulling permits. All of those go to the town. So, I would, to give you the exact breakdown of that, transportation fees are $2,400 a unit or $576,000. Recreation fees are $3,200 a unit or $768,000. Again, significant amount of money that comes into the town that can be used for a wide variety of purposes that I think really do benefit a community like this, especially when it's growing as rapidly as it is. I'll also add, I think this is a ripe opportunity for a project like this. As I said, we're open to additional conversation around it. We want to make everyone comfortable with it as much as we can. We want y'all to be enthusiastic about it in the way you were about Cobblestone. I'll add, if there were more opportunities to add retail out here, we would. We think retail at Cobblestone's just been fantastic. We're somewhere in the 85 to 90% pre-leased range, and the users that are coming out there are, I think, very, very, very accretive to the community. certainly serving as an amenity to the people that are living on site. The thing is, I heard there was a hearing probably 3 or 4 years ago for a project we're doing down in Knightdale, North Carolina, where the conversation came up about, can you add more retail to this? Can you add more retail to this? And the planning director at the time brought up a very good point, which is, hey, retail's great for development when it makes sense. I think the amount we've added here, in my opinion, makes sense. We feel confident about it. We feel we can fill it. But first thing that kills the town's retail is lots of empty space. So, we could certainly come out and tell you, yeah, we'll put 50,000 square feet of retail out here. And the reality is it's going to sit empty. And other entrepreneurs are going to come to the area. They're going to see that. It's going to give them cause for concern around why that space is sitting empty. Rolesville's a vibrant town. It's growing. Your downtown is changing. We're here to try to enhance that. I think this opportunity does that. Again, happy to field whatever questions, please ask them. Again, no matter how blunt or direct or insulting or whatever, if you want to just yell and throw things at me, that's fine too. But here to answer them as they come up. So please feel free to ask them.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
Tonight we've talked about, and I'm going to use the wrong term, so correct me, please. Senior living. What's the
Age restricted.
age restricted living, and we've also talked about veterans. Was there any other consideration ever given to making a whole building that, or a whole? I know there's talk about units this, unit that, but was there any consideration, since there's less traffic, according to the study, that I don't believe, was there any consideration ever given to, sorry, Matt, was there any consideration ever given to, that prospect of, and I know the dollars and cents and everything else to make sense, everything else, but to look at what we need in town, well, obviously we've been told we need whatever living it is. I'm going to call it senior living and veterans area. So has that ever been considered for this?
So I've obviously made the veterans proffer, right? I think as far as adding age restriction to these units, I'd be very cautious as to how we craft that. Reason being, it sounds like we just added about 500 units of supply in that space. I just have concerns to your point. Just want to make sure these buildings fill. That's the most important part of this process for me, obviously, and plenty other considerations here. But when we get going on this thing, we want them to fill and fill quickly. Certainly some sort of age restriction on a building, if we're not talking about 75 plus, we'd be open to that conversation. Absolutely, yeah.
How much retail space are you?
So between 10 and 20,000 square feet right now is what we're showing.
I guess you can't give that to me in numbers of vendors or.
I could, yeah. So
buildings, if you will.
10,000 square feet. So it's probably about 4 vendors. 20,000's, twice that. So about 2,500 square feet per vendor. Would love to hit a 5,000 square foot user out there. That'd be great.
So what do we have at Cobblestone?
55,000 square feet, and that is. That's so embarrassing. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's okay.
15 or 16.
So you have 15 or 16 currently at Cobblestone of vendors or of retail space, entrepreneurial space. And so what I'm hearing you say is at this particular project, it would be roughly 8?
4 to 8, yeah.
4 to 8.
Depending on the ultimate amount of retail space that goes out there. The only reason I don't have that exact number is because we still have to design the buildings, and that kind of shifts as you work through that process. So,
I love the veterans piece of it. I mean, my dad is a vet. I'm very passionate about supporting that, but my mom was also a teacher.
Sure.
And so I don't see a lot of love being shared to public safety and teachers who don't make 100,000, 80,000,
sure.
90,000, 70,000. 60,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want me to keep going? Like if I'm, what's important to me is diversity in our community, yes, but we can't be so all in that we're missing the other people. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to make this accessible to the teachers, public safety, those people who aren't. I just want, that's what my hold up is how we play into that field or that arena too in terms of affordability, et cetera, et cetera.
No, sorry, workforce. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Couldn't think of the word.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's part of the conversational process, right? There are additional proffers we can make to help accommodate that. I will say that oftentimes in my experience, to your point, police officers, teachers, firefighters, you name it, we are able to, there are oftentimes we'll be able to offer discounts to them in order to get them in there. Trying to think of exactly what we're doing over at Cobblestone. It's still a little bit early to say, give you precise numbers. But that's kind of a market-wide standard. You'll typically see that. And the reason being that, typically the way that someone gets qualified to occupy an apartment is based on income. Well, teachers, firefighters, police officers have different sets of benefit packages that makes, their income, while it may appear lower, is actually, functionally a little bit higher. So they are able to qualify for these units, oftentimes receive discounts associated with their, employment status. And those are ways we help. So we do end up, with quite a few teachers, firefighters, nurses, you name it, that, occupy our units as a result of all that.
All right, and my follow-up question with the retail, 4 to 8 units. I'm just curious, what was the feedback that you got from the community in Perry Street? I love to hear as candidness as possible.
Well, I mean, they are here if they want to come up here and say something.
I would love that.
Or if you guys want to wave your hands and tell them I'm lying. I think I like the idea of a coffee shop.
They just started waving at Kenyon just to let you know.
I think I like the idea of a coffee shop, right? Walkable retail that provides an amenity to the area. So, we're talking about kind of off Main Street retail like that. You end up with, that. I want to say dentists, because I think we've got a lot of dentists in the area right now, or orthodontists, but service-based businesses as well are frequent users of spaces like this. So yeah, amenitized retail, right? We're not trying to open a nightclub out here. I want to keep it quiet and focus on things that enhance the tranquility of the area, so to speak.
Well,
thank you.
I will say another issue is our brethren next door in Wake Forest have about 5,000 apartments built and another 2,000 plus being built. I had an intern in my office this summer, so I had her call 21 of them that were within a 5-mile radius of Rolesville. All of them had vacancies, and the starting price for one bedroom was about $1,200 to $1,500. So there's a lot of vacant apartments already. So what's the argument in favor of putting them right here when it's going to impact our traffic? And I don't even know if you're going to be guaranteed full occupancy.
Well, if they're vacant, they're not going to be putting off that much traffic, right? So,
well, yeah, and that doesn't do anyone any good.
Hey, listen, that's a very fair question. It's one that I answer all the time, right? So, happy to run through that. I've even got our, kind of our capital markets guy here because I anticipated something like that may come up. I field that question from investors, lenders, you name it, all the time. The Triangle in general is actually seeing a little bit of a vacancy climb. It's not just out in this sector. It's really across the broader market. I think a lot of that has to do with just increased cost of living more than anything. I will add that there's been a significant drop-off in supply across, the Research Triangle more broadly. And that's as a result of increased interest rates making it very difficult for developers to get new multifamily product online. Our thesis, right, as far as from an investment perspective, and to your point from a occupancy perspective, is that over the next couple of years, assuming we were approved tonight, which I'm hoping we get, over the next couple of years as we are working our way through site plan, CD process, building permit process, you name it, there is going to be a significant increase in demand for these units. The reason being that there are still a lot of people moving to the Triangle. We just saw a generational amount of supply come out of the ground very quickly and somewhat all at once, so to speak. However, right now, new units that are being constructed relative to that which is in the process of delivery or has come online within the last couple of years has actually dropped to the lowest level since 1971. This is a market-wide problem. The Research Triangle generally may not be feeling it right now, but does have a pretty significant housing crisis on its hand. We are going to see houses, the price of a house increase dramatically, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years if you look at places like Austin, Texas, or Atlanta. Atlanta's a terrible example because of the traffic, but, or Atlanta, and what's happened to their housing prices over the last 10, 15, 20 years. They've skyrocketed. So middle-income housing opportunities like this that provide call it bridge housing opportunities, or even permanent housing opportunities that are, I don't want to call them a capital A affordable, but are maybe lowercase a attainable. Help to absorb the need from people that are looking for places to go. Again, this is I think really a nationwide problem, but is particularly going to be felt in the Research Triangle for the next next 10 to 20 years in particular, but I think even in more in the short term. If you're delivering units in 2027, 2028 right now, the amount of new product coming out of the ground has totally dropped off a cliff. You're pretty much going to be the only shop in town. And I will say that a lot of people have bought into that thesis. We are, we just got cobblestone going on, obviously. So there's an example where the exact same questions were asked of us during that financing process. We just closed on a deal to the south of Raleigh for a much larger project, 613 units. So I'm not asking to do that here. 613 units to the south of Raleigh. Same exact questions came up there. And, the consensus was that they agreed based on the trends of the area. I can go on. We have a few others that kind of went through the exact same process that the feedback was, yeah, there is a real drop-off in supply coming in 2027, 2028. If you're there with a product that provides attainable housing opportunities for people that they're going to fill. So we feel good about it. We're making significant investments out here in pursuit of that. That's the business thesis of it. That doesn't address your traffic concerns.
How much are your apartments and what are the sizes?
So they're larger format. These units haven't been designed exactly yet, and what I tell you is that if they're renting them for today, if I'm renting them today, a one-bedroom is going to be in the $1,600 a month range, up to $1,700, some pushing to $1,800, depending on the size of them. Two bedrooms are going to be that $1,800, $1,900, $2,000 range, and three bedrooms are going to be that $2,100, $2,200, $2,300 range. Larger format, though. So, to your point, these units are ranging on the low end about 789 square feet for a one-bedroom. They go all the way up to about 1,400 square feet on the upper end for a three-bedroom, with a lot falling kind of in that, middle range there, where the majority of them are going to be 1,000, 1,100 square feet for the most part. So not huge, enormous, right, but spacious enough. I mean, I'd invite you all to come on, down the street. We've got a couple of buildings that are up now with very large units in them. And, the reason we do that is because I think it's more community-oriented, more suburban-focused, and it also keeps people in them longer. They come and they want to stay. They want to be part of the community for a long time. Our releasing rate averages around 50 to 60%. If someone gets to the end of their 1 or 15-month lease or whatever, about half the time they end up signing up for a second lease. So.
Any more quick questions, board? If not, we'll continue hearing from the public.
I have one question about the density of the project. So it is well over the 12 units per acre. It's 18.25 or something along those lines. And I was reading in here on page 301, I'm assuming that's a justification of the 18.25. It was a little confusing to me, that part to read, of why it should be 18.25. But I think, of course, 6.25 units per acre does add that much more to the traffic in the first place.
Yep.
But I think that's a bit much.
I think I would certainly appreciate what you're saying. I would counter with a couple of things, right? I think, one would be that, it also increases the property tax base for property like this, right? So if we were to drop that, about a third, 33%, and your property tax income is going to drop, in concert. Same goes with, same goes for those entitlement fees we were talking about earlier. So there is a, financial incentive for the town, I think, to approve a higher density project here. I also add that, multifamily units, your multifamily projects oftentimes do sit in that 18 to 20 units an acre range. Obviously varies from site to site. You will find some that are 16 and 15. You'll also find some that go all the way to, 24 to 25. I think in this case, 18 units an acre is, in my opinion, appropriate. Obviously, I can understand the concerns around the traffic and items like that, but that is, in trying to provide a community that we felt like, would fit the property best. That's what we landed at.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions real quick? You may come back. You may be some more questions. So I'm going to see if anybody else wants to speak. Does anybody else want to speak in favor of the project? Anybody want to speak against the project or in opposition? You have to come. You have to come up. Yeah, you're going.
I love rules.
I know you guys, but please state your name, address for the record, if you would.
I'm Kathy McKee. I grew up in 104 Glen Circle. My mother, 94-year-old mother, passed away in August, Dorothy Cook. I don't currently live there now. I live in Charlotte, but my brothers and I inherited the property, and the road is going to come right up to the backs of all our properties. These guys have been great talking to us about doing buffers and and putting the greenway on the side between us. So they've been great to work with. But having this massive project suddenly looking down over our little community, and how in the world are all these cars going to come out and all these people going to go to work every day? Already now with the traffic the way it is, but see, that's what, they're getting me to come up here and talk about this, but describe to them what it's like in the mornings and in the afternoons, all day long, what's happened to that neighborhood just right now, and it's not even there. What's a typical day like?
They know, or they should know. But I'll have to give it to y'all. You are the only one, nobody here, has been and talked to us. Out in the field, they see the runoff we're getting all through the road. It's flooding us out between our two houses. You are the only one that has come and addressed that issue. Y'all haven't. You haven't. You said that, you told me that a study had been done and the ditch was fine. You said it was your person who,
Ms. Abernathy, if you don't mind, state your name and address so we'll
I
have.
am Betty Abernathy, and I live at 108 Glen Circle. Been in Rolesville all my 77 years of life. I've lived here. So I've seen a lot. We're smart enough to know that something is going to go on that property. And what they're saying, we don't like, but we had rather have that than something else that could go there. I think they're really trying to look after us. I mean, that's the way I feel. They are trying to look after us. I mean, Rolesville is in an awful situation with traffic, apartments everywhere. A lot of y'all don't live where we live. Oh, well, I know you don't. Y'all don't see what y'all have approved and have done to our neighborhood. I mean, it's destroyed our little neighborhood. These guys are really trying to help us with what they're asking. And with the street being built from Main Street over through town property to Parker Ridge, I think you'll see traffic gets better. I mean, that's my opinion. Everybody has their opinion. But, like I said, y'all can do that. Y'all have come out and talked. I mean, y'all have been in the field, y'all been right there with us. So,
Thank you.
And they have been, who designed, I mean, we were never told and come to a public meeting about the fact that a connector road was coming behind here. And, I mean, I'm a realtor, so I can look at this map. The big plan for this little neighborhood is for this little neighborhood to go away. So, but, you know, here we are with the properties that our parents have owned since the 60s. Some of the people are original owners. And so when's it going to go away? It's just going to be choked out with traffic and massive apartment building looking over. That's the concern. I'm more concerned about the road being so close to our development. It seems that if you guys can make the money you need to make and develop it so that our whole neighborhood and way of life isn't ruined, then we wouldn't be so upset about it.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to add, you're going to have to tell me what you want to say.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? There was a Worth Meals. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Anybody else? Nobody else has signed up, but does anybody else want to speak? There has been a couple questions from the board about this transportation part. You familiar with that, Matt? I know they probably got some questions for you too. And the main one I want to make sure is one April brought up is in our comprehensive land use plan, it says it's 12 units per acre. We're adding to that, plus we're adding this 12 to 24,000 square feet of commercial. And I really didn't see how the difference of our comprehensive plan and the proposed, how much additional traffic is that? I mean, what are we saying more than our comprehensive plan says?
Sure. He's going to answer the one about the traffic, but I can, I think, speak to the density question. So the 2017 comprehensive plan described high-density residential as a future land use category. That's where the 6 to 12 is called. Then in 2021, the board adopted the land development ordinance with 3 mixed-use districts and described those as having density caps that were much higher than that. So the future land use predates the LDO standard. The applicant is requesting a zoning district that allows up to 20 standalone multifamily units per acre. Does not speak to when you vertically integrate them over like first floor retail for a density. Basically, it's a freebie on that. So the request is coming in at lower than the density of the district that they're asking for, but it does conflict with the 7 years prior now future land use designation for the density identified in high density residential.
But I know it's in LDO, which means we could put it anywhere that has that density. But I guess the question we're asking, being the increase, I mean, I looked at Main Street, I looked at all our documents. I have never seen anywhere where we were proposing town center on that particular property. Is there anywhere that says the town envisioned that to be a town center over there with commercial in it?
No, it identifies the future land use as high density residential. The land use is not a zoning district.
Right.
And they are not one-to-one analogous. Unfortunately, we have land use categories called high-density residential, and we have a zoning district called high-density residential. We have a land use category called town center, and then we have a zoning district called town center. But their descriptions were done, well, about 4 years apart, from 2017 to 2021, and they don't align 100%.
So we're caught somewhere in the middle.
Well, it has to be rezoned no matter what.
Well, yes, the by right zoning is residential level. So for practically any development except the by right, and I put a little analysis in the staff memo about what the lot yield under RL would be, very, very low.
Right, but
Detached
do we
units.
want 20 lots, 20 units per acre?
Would that make a difference, Matt? I guess is what, and I didn't see that. I didn't see what difference it
The
is.
increased density that they're proposing through the TC zoning district versus the residential land use, the high-density residential land use, which is described as 6 to 12. Let's say the town was planned for this property to be 6 to 12, and now the applicant's asking for 18. Is that kind of busting the transportation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's a pretty substantial difference in terms of density there. I think, Michael was saying 6 to 18, you're tripling your unit count per acre. That's a substantial difference, yeah.
And then the commercial, does commercial generate a lot of traffic?
Yeah, the commercial in this regard, just running the numbers that the applicant put forth on their site plan.
I just had a conversation with them about the commercial over there.
So we're looking at about 2,670 daily trips. The retail portion of that is just shy of 1,100. So it's approximately, I don't know what exact percentage that works out to be. It's less than half, more than a third, in terms of how much retail traffic there is. But in terms of the, just to give you an idea of the units, it's 240 units. That equates to 1,600 daily trips.
Any follow-up questions for Matt while he's here? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's get finished up here and we'll call you back. See if anybody got any questions. Okay. Was anybody else that want to speak at all? We need anybody else to speak that hasn't spoke? We've been through everybody. The board, do y'all have any questions from people who spoke so far? Looks like we're finishing up. You got one thing, and then Michael, you take us home, if you would.
I'll be quick. I just, maybe two quick things. I think the first one would be, Matt, if you wouldn't mind maybe just describing the impact to the traffic patterns following the connection, adding the connection to the town-owned property here, just real quick. Kind of the before and after.
Yeah, so a little bit of history on what we've done for the traffic study to date. The original proposal did not include the connection down to the Young Street connector, right? So when we originally ran the traffic numbers, I believe we went in front of planning board. Our recommendation was to restrict access at Perry Street and Main during the morning rush hour and the PM rush hour, because we were seeing a lot of delay on that approach. But we're kind of limited as to what mitigation we can provide at that location. So what that ended up doing, and what was not really desirable, was that sent a lot of traffic through the neighborhood out to Young Street to get up to Main, right? So the feedback that was, well, I guess it was put forth, and then what's changed since then is that we added in the connection down to the Young Street connector. It's a lot of connectors, so I'm trying to mind my words here. You heard the applicant state earlier that a lot of the traffic for this, certainly the residential piece, we envision going down to the bypass, right? So we did, in the study, we did assign some traffic to the neighborhood, because when there's a connection, the cars are going to, use a connection if it's provided to them, right? So there's no physical barrier that prevents cars from using the neighborhood. However, the most efficient path to get to the bypass would be to use their proposed connector, go through the town's property, and get over to Young Street. So we assigned most of the traffic that's going to be going to the bypass to do that. We do envision that the retail traffic, given the nature and the location of the retail, that's going to come from Main Street and the surrounding areas, right? But we envision most of the residential traffic to kind of go down to the bypass. The other thing that we felt was a plus for the community regarding the connection down to the Young Street connector is that if traffic is waiting a substantially long time up at Main Street, they can go down, and if they're trying to get west on Main Street, they can get to the roundabout and then up to the signal at Redford Place Drive. They can make a safe left turn onto Main Street there. Or they can obviously get out to Young Street as we've discussed. So there's definitely a benefit to that connection. It disperses traffic a lot better, and it gives people options, right? The other point that probably bears mentioning is that if we were to restrict access, that neighborhood only has 2 points of access, right? So if we were to eliminate the driveway onto Main Street or restrict access on Main Street, the existing neighborhood can only be accessed by Young. So obviously we want to provide 2 points of access to the existing neighborhood and the existing residents there. So just another point of consideration.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So yeah, just to kind of close things out here, my one request would be, depending on the will of the board tonight, would be In the event it's going to be a no, would be to move for a deferment. We would obviously prefer to leave here with a yes, but we are in, I think, year 5 of this process now, roughly. Yeah, year 5 of the process now. We would, that a deferment allows us the ability to go back, huddle up, and then come back to you guys for some more conversation, and try to get something that everybody is comfortable with. Now, of course, like I said, I prefer a yes. I think it's a great project. I think we are meeting the long-term vision plans of the town, promoting density down in these areas. I always say, hey, if it's not going to go here, then where? If we want to be pushing for density and along Main Street, pushing for retail along Main Street in particular, this is how we help promote it, as young, walkable residents living along Main Street. So I think it's it's something we put a lot of time and effort into. I think that the neighbors were very kind. Thank you so much for kind of talking about the efforts we've made to make this thing something that we're proud of, and I am proud of it. I think it's a great project. I'd be honored to build it here. We're excited about it, and just very much appreciate y'all taking the time to hear this out, to talk to us tonight, and would really appreciate a yes vote on this one. I think it's a great addition to the community, and I think the addition of this extension down to the town collector road does help to significantly mitigate the traffic impacts along Main Street. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much again. I appreciate y'all. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Burham. Appreciate that.
No other information from staff unless you have any questions for staff.
Any final questions for staff? No, I can't see you down there. You good? You good to go? Okay. With that, I will turn it over to the board. You got the proposals up there. What's the feeling of the board on this one?
Move to deny rezoning request 23-05 for subject property.
Okay. So we got a motion to deny zoning request RZ 2305 for subject property. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion to second. Open our board, any more discussion? Not hearing any more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Was any? I didn't hear you.
I did not vote for a reason.
Okay.
I'm still torn.
Okay.
Thank you so much for asking.
So we got, what do we got? Four? Four yeses. And
Commissioner, you have to vote one way or the other.
I remember in my training that my silence was still a yes. So it is still a yes. But I have some discussion that I think I do need to have, but I'll have that with staff.
okay. So which way you vote?
Do we have to review that again? It needs to be official.
You're here.
Yes.
Okay. I think, Madam Clerk, that was 5-0. Thank you, board. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks a lot. So with that, we will try to wrap up. It is getting to a late time here. Do we have a town attorney report?
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, I have two items for you. One, I'll do the first one while we still have the applicant here. The case that you just saw was the first time, and I don't know whether it would become common practice, but it was the first time that Wake County's Affordable Housing Division was willing to participate in an effort to provide affordable housing in a private development. The town of Rolesville doesn't have a housing authority and doesn't have the staff to do that. Wake County, with its new staff, did agree to the request of the the attorneys that were involved did agree. So if a condition like that were to come up again, as it's no longer here as I expected it might be, we may have a partner in Wake County Affordable Housing to enforce those sort of rental housing, affordable housing situations. I say may, as it was very reluctant that they be drawn into what would essentially be the town's zoning authority to enforce that. That's the first one. And the second is good news that perhaps most of the board is already aware of, but the town has been able to acquire the last 2 easements on Williams Street. The board had previously authorized eminent domain for one of those properties through the good work, I don't know this firsthand, but I hear a rumor that through the good work of Mayor Curran, a resolution to one of those cases was reached, and I was handed 2 signed easements by the Economic Development Director when I walked into the meeting tonight. I thought you'd like to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other update?
That's it, unless you're remembering that I've forgotten something.
Well, only thing, I was out at the site today because, we met news people for the library going out there. What about that property that we don't own that's so critical for us to be able to put our complex there? Is any
The Woods litigation for that site is ongoing, and the last I had seen on that was that is being set for mediation. However, the attorney on the other side had been replaced, and that attorney had asked for time to get up to speed.
Thank you, appreciate that. How about town manager in your report?
Good night, board. Only thing I have to report is that tomorrow that myself, some staff, and 2 of you will be participating with us at the Urban Plan for Public Officials. It'll be taking place over in Raleigh, and it's an engaging workshop that convenes local decision makers for an interactive dialogue about the fundamental forces that affect built environment and important leadership roles that elected officials and appointed officials and public administrators play in that role. And so we'll be taking on different roles within the process, be it a developer or someone who is on the planning side, and walking through a scenario from beginning to end. So I think that's a great learning opportunity, and allow us to kind of see some things that we're dealing with in a metaphorical sense to allow us to be more cohesive in our understanding in that. And so that's something we'll be taking part in tomorrow, thanks to the Triangle Community Coalition and the Urban Land Institute for putting that on.
Thank you much. Okay.
Just turn my mic on. I missed the most important part of your question about the Woods property. The most important part of that case is that the town does own that property. That litigation has progressed far enough that title is no longer the question. It's simply a matter of compensation.
Okay. So we can move
sort of bury the lead there with telling you about the litigation when the reality is you own the entire town hall site.
Yeah, because, first thing we got to clear off all the property. So,
That's correct.
That's good.
That can happen anytime.
Yeah, that's good to know. Madam Clerk, anything, anything we need to know? Yeah, only thing Christina's mentioned to me, and we're not going to probably be able to talk about it next meeting because we've got the joint meeting with the planning board, but come the first meeting in December is when we do our calendar. And she was saying there has been some people saying it's very confusing to have meetings on the 6 o'clock hour and the 7 o'clock hour, depending. And some thought about us to think about before we do it in December. Do we want to make them all on 6 o'clock or make them all on 7 o'clock or leave them where they are or whatever? But I guess it's hard for people to remember what time we started. Just think about that. We'll do the calendar first meeting in December, I think. So with that, only thing I'll report, we do have a show for next week, veteran show next Thursday night. Brooke Dickhart, which was here tonight, she's going to be on there talking about the Joel Center, which Commissioner Austin said we broke ground on, and that's a good progress going on there. So we're going to talk about, the next steps for the Joel Center. And also retired, is it Lieutenant Colonel? Is that what LTC stand for? Okay, retired LTC Claude Clark is going to be. He's our ROTC area manager. And, ROTC do have, that's our future veterans, right? So, he's going to be on. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So y'all can watch or call in and have any questions. Feel free to do that. So with that, that's all I have. We talked about the library. That was good news this week. So any closing comments from the board? Well, unless there's opposition, I'm going to just adjourn this meeting in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.